AV Rant. I'm Tom Antry, and I'm here with.
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And welcome back to Tom. We had crazy scheduling stuff there last week, power outages, all kinds of stuff. I was in the midst of a thunderstorm earlier. I was like, oh, don't go out, power. Thankfully, that has passed now. So there you go.
Technically, last week I would have got Monday. I canceled and pushed it back till Tuesday. Right? Is
Right?
that what happened? And that was because
Yep.
the
Power outage.
well, it was the tropical storm Colin, or I don't remember what it was. Anyways, was rolling through, and I was like, I'm gonna lose power for sure. I'm gonna lose
Mm-hmm.
power for sure, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
I would have lost it right at the end of the podcast.
Okay.
I would have lost it like 40 something. Transformer behind my neighbor's house blew, and it's like just our block was out. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, we are never gonna get our power back on. It was like 17 people. I'm
Yeah,
like,
not high priority. This is hundreds or thousands of people
no,
affected.
I'm like,
Yeah.
when you want like the entire neighborhood to go
Yeah.
down, and that is not what happened. So it took them 18 hours to get us back up. So I could have gotten back on, but for the next day, but it was you guys had already recorded by that point.
Yeah, and
You
that
recorded
was
during the time
wanted
when
to,
there
and it
was
was a good thing we did because Austin was called into work later that evening, so he wouldn't have been around, and we weren't sure if you were going to be. So anyway, I mean, at least podcast got done, and thank you to
right.
Austin for filling in last week on very short notice and cramming it into the middle of his day. So, yep, we managed to get through all the questions last week. That's good. We got a pile more this week, as well as lots of news. And you know what? Before we start everything, this is certainly not the podcast where we get political or comment on anything like that, but we want to say to everyone who was affected by the horrible events that took place in Orlando over the weekend, as a human being that just affected me, I feel like I have the right to say that much. This isn't a platform for me to say anything about events like that, but just as a human being, it affected me. And if I'm a little bit, less effervescent on this episode, that's the reason why. This will live on the internet forever, so people can understand if they're listening to this years from now what was happening at the time. So our hearts go out to everyone there. It was a terrible tragedy, and
for sure. I was in Orlando the weekend before
Yeah.
for a friend of ours baby's baptism, and of course we're passing through Orlando all the time. Surely, I mean, I was shocked. We woke up
Yeah.
in the morning. I thought people were talking about it, and I still thought they were talking about the other shooting that had happened
Yes.
with in Orlando as well, with the voice star lady.
Yeah,
And
yeah, Christina Grimmie, who's 22 years old and signing autographs. I mean,
I'm like, what is going on in Orlando today? But I was definitely very, very shocked, and I was glad that everybody that I knew checked in on Facebook. And it's really nice to have social media these days, if for nothing else than remember when the Northridge quake happened. I had a girlfriend who was living in Los Angeles. I had friends that were living in Los Angeles, and I was frantically trying to call everybody. You just couldn't get through. You had no idea. It took you days to figure out whether or not people were alive. Nowadays, you can just keep an eye on Facebook, and it'll pop up, and then hopefully in a couple hours. But that's still stuff they're sorting out right now. It's really, really terrible. And you're right, it affected me as well. And it's our hearts do go out to all of those people affected, either directly or indirectly by the actions of one clearly unhinged individual.
yeah.
But back to the podcast at
Yes.
hand.
Yes.
This is AV Rant, the podcast where we answer your AV and home theater questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. That will go to Austin, our producer, who will put it on our question list. And if you would also like to CC Rob at avrant.com and Tom at avrant.com, that would be nice. You can do that. You don't have to, but you could. You can go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there at our podcast page, facebook.com/avrantpodcast, where we are quite active, as well as our listeners are. I think that shows up this week as well, where somebody got their question answered before we could even get to them by one of our listeners, which is great. Twitter at First Reflect for Rob, at avrant_Tom for me, and at Austin Pon, TEN instead of TIN, Austin Pon, our producer, who also has his own podcast, We Watch Movies. Podcast is actually a podcast about tropical storm chasing.
Okay.
not the most exciting podcast in the world, and they
not just the
run
movie
very far.
Twister, like you might
No.
think from the title of the podcast. We watch movies.
No. It's about not hurricanes either, or twisters. Just tropical storms. They go around and they go and they sit in them, and it has something to do. I think it's a metaphysical thing where they think the rains from tropical storms are some way healing. Not really sure what that's about, but Austin's a nice guy otherwise, so we'll let his new age BS theories pass. As you do with your crazy uncle who gets drunk at family reunions and shouts out racial slurs. Just kind of ignore that person, that part of that person. Now, we want to thank our listeners of the week. This week we have Joseph, Terry, and Rick, and a special shout out to Terry because apparently he sent a donation to the podcast via, and all three of these guys did, Joseph, Terry, and Rick, but Terry in particular sent a donation to the podcast by going to www.avrant.com, clicking on the buy us a cup of coffee link, and leaving us a PayPal donation, which he could do with either his PayPal account or his credit card. And I somehow either missed the email or thought I added it to the list, or generally speaking, I like to blame Austin for these things, so I'm going to go ahead and blame Austin.
I'm not sure how on the donation thing. That definitely shows up in your inbox. But...
it only comes to my inbox, and I'm the only one that ever adds it to the list. But clearly, in some way, Austin messed up.
He must have deleted it after you put it there, because that would be so like him.
I believe so. I do believe so. That is well. You got to understand that healing rain. It's not.
That's right.
It has a little bit of acid in it.
Joseph, Rick, Terry, guys, thank you all so much for the donations. Really appreciate it.
And Terry, thank you very much for emailing me and asking, hey, did you get my donation? The answer is yes. I cannot stop the donations from coming. I actually don't physically have to press anything. I just get an announcement from PayPal that tells me that a donation came, and I somehow missed yours. So I apologize, Terry, please. Thank you very much. Double thank you for the times I missed in this week.
Yeah. So you have exciting, very exciting news. We have tons of questions, so hopefully you can do this somewhat quickly. But...
Oh, no one wants me to do this quickly, but yes, I will go through this more quickly than I would have gone through it had everything gone to plan.
Right.
Now, I have been, I don't want to say harassed, but encouraged by some of our listeners to complete my SVS review of the Prime speakers and the Prime bookshelves and the Ultra bookshelf speakers.
Right.
And this weekend I told my wife, I have got to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it. And then I took a half a day off of work and just did it while everybody wasn't home, because it made my life a lot easier. The kids are all home for last week was their first week home from the first, like they had half a week of school, and the other half of the week they were actually in the house, which sucked. But my parents were here to watch them, and then I said, okay, this is what I'll do. I'll set them up in the home theater. I'll switch them out as fast as I can, which was not very fast. And I'll do some listening tests with both of them. We'll take some pictures. So I took some great pictures. I reset up the Prime speakers. I put everything on pure direct. Was listening to some 2-channel stuff. Made sure the subwoofers weren't getting any. They wouldn't have, but I put on pure direct anyways, just so they were getting full range. And was listening to the Prime bookshelf speakers, getting a sense of what they sound like. Even though I've had them set up for a very long time and they've sounded fine. I haven't had any complaints with them whatsoever. But doing some critical listening. So then I take them down and I put up the Ultra bookshelf speakers, which I have just literally within the last 20 minutes taken out of the box. Set up the Ultra bookshelf speakers and go, well, that's not right. Something is amiss. The voice is only coming out of one speaker.
Okay. No.
So I go and check all my settings. I check my the connections. I check to make sure that everything's connected the right way. And sure enough, one tweeter is not playing anything.
All right.
So that's, you know what? I can fix this. So, I check, maybe it's the little jumper thingy that because they have dual binding posts on the Ultras. So I put it on the top one instead of the bottom one, which is where I usually connect it. Put the top one instead of the bottom. Still not working. Now I think I've done something to my speaker in some way. I don't know how I could possibly have done it. My speaker, my amplifier, my receiver in some way. So I take them off. I put the primes back up. Sure enough, the primes work just fine. Okay. I'm like, holy crap. I have had a broken speaker sitting in the box for like 2 months. I had not taken them out. So I was very disappointed. That being said, the first test I usually do is for bass, and the bass was remarkably similar between the two.
Oh, now that
so
is
I was expecting more, considerable more extensions from the Ultras, because I thought, based on the size, I would hear a lot more extension. But the bass test on them was not really as that, and considerably lower. It's a little bit lower, going to say it was a little bit lower. Wasn't that much lower. Then the mid-range, it was clearly fuller on the. I want to say they sounded a little bit wider, if that makes sense. But there was a fuller mid-range. Like I could tell, through what I could hear in the mid-range, that it wasn't crossed over into the tweeter. What I could hear in that area sounded like a bigger sound. It sounded more full. But that was the extent of what testing I could really do reliably without setting it to mono and putting one speaker right next to the other, then trying to do it that way, which sucked. But what I did do is I took my Veris Grand bookshelf speakers off of my back wall and set those up with the Prime speakers. Now it looks to me, the Prime and the Ultra, that tweeter looks exactly the same. It may be a different tweeter. I don't know.
Yeah, it might have a different engine in behind it or something. But
yeah, there may be something going on behind it, but it looks like the exact same tweeter. So I'm thinking that the sonic differences between the Ultra and the Primes aren't going to be super significant. You might see a little bit. There was a little bit more bass, a fuller sound, maybe something else, but I can't honestly say that because I couldn't test them.
I mean, that says a lot for the Primes, to be honest.
Right. No, I'm saying about between the Primes and the Ultras. I'm guessing that tweeter is the same tweeter and all that stuff. Now, when I took down the Veris Grands, the bass was very similar, and the Veris Grands are about the same size as the Primes. So they're about the same size. They're very similar. Yeah, I would guess that the Veris Grands are a little bit smaller inside because they have that bowed, towards a smaller point in the back, whereas the Primes are more of a square or rectangular. So I think they may have a little bit more internal volume. The bass was very similar. And it was one of those things where, and it's funny, as you do review speakers over and over and over again, you know that you're going to get tricked. You know that your brain is going to trick you when there's a difference, when you're going from one to another and there's a difference. And that immediate reaction that you have is the one that most people go home with. I like this clip speaker because it's super loud or it's super dynamic or something
first impressions. They count for stuff in audio too. Yeah.
They do. So I have to look past that because I know that first impression is often exaggerated by parts of your psyche that are controlled not by how good the speaker actually sounds, but just the fact that it's different in some way.
Yeah, and you can't help but prime yourself mentally to listen for a difference. Like even if you're experienced, it's like impossible to stop yourself completely from thinking that way at least a little bit, right?
So when I hooked up the Veris Grand, the first thing I was like, holy crap, these things sound tiny compared to these Prime speakers. Like the sound, first of all, the volume went way down. They're probably just not as efficient as the Primes are. So I had to adjust the volume on the fly and that sort of thing, which is a hassle, but it's not that big of a deal. And clear as I did more listening tests back and forth, that the Primes just didn't have the extension on the high end. They did not have the clarity overall that the Veris Grands did. Now, I don't know how much the Veris Grands cost overall compared to the Primes. I should have looked at that before I started.
Yeah, well, the Veris Grand bookshelves are I think they're $760 a pair now. Well, that's the Veris 2, so we should go back to yours. I think they're $750 a pair, and then the Primes are $500 a pair, right? So
yeah, so they're in similar price points.
With the Veris Grands being a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, I would expect that the Primes would do better in larger rooms than maybe the Veris will. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it was really clear that they were a flatter speaker to me.
The Aperions were flatter, or
the Aperions were flatter. There was a little bit of a mid-range bloat and this is not. I want to stress. I'm not talking about them being, one speaker being massively better or worse.
Right, we're talking fairly subtle differences, right? So
yeah, it wasn't super subtle.
Not super subtle,
but it wasn't like I spent this last couple of months with the Primes going, oh, these speakers, they've got a real issue. They don't. They're a very good speaker, and I think I stand by the recommendation that we've been giving for the Prime bookshelf speakers as a very nice. I want to call them, better than entry level bookshelf speaker. I liked them quite a bit. When you start listening to like the real, the top piano keys symbols and stuff like that. Something like the Varus Grand is it just had a lot more realism.
I'm betting my Glockenspiel test would have revealed that.
Probably would have.
Yeah.
Probably would
One
have.
of my go-tos.
But good speakers. I'm very impressed with the Prime speakers. I'm very impressed. If $500 a pair is the absolute max that you can spend, I think you find a lot worse ways to spend them. If you had a couple of hundred extra bucks, I don't think that you would. I feel very confident that you would listen to those two speakers and think that you got something for that $200 extra.
Okay.
It's, to me, the difference was enough that I would have no problems recommending one over the other. I really would have liked to have heard those Ultras compared to
properly. I guess you could listen to one in mono, but
yeah, I didn't want to do that. The other thing I noticed with, I guess, all the speakers, this is probably more my room than anything else, is getting them the correct toe in. Which was different for each speaker, which is kind of a pain too. Because not only did I have to change, I only have one set of speaker stands. Not only did I have to change the wires, and the volume, but I also had to change a toe in between each listening test. Getting the toe in just right made a huge difference with their imaging and the proper getting a proper center image. But the center image with the primes was just crazy rock solid. It's really, really, really good. So I was pretty impressed with that. Didn't need too much toe in, so it wasn't like you had to have them point at your head. But
I've often found that when you have a little bit of a high frequency roll off, that it actually does help the center imaging, in the sense that the center imaging seems to be more rock solid. Like when you have the super extended highs, it's like you kind of gotta be sitting in the right spot. And I think it's just because the higher you go in frequency, the more directional that sound naturally becomes. I think that plays into it a little bit.
It does. And I've had more problems with my Varus Grands with getting a good 2-channel center image than I've had with any other speaker in this room. Honestly, they have given me the most issue. It takes me a good long while to kind of get them just right. And I'm not sure. First of all, the thing is most of the time I'm here watching TV. I'm not doing 2-channel listening. So when you've got a center channel, the center channel is doing all that work anyway, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But when I was doing the 2-channel stuff, it was pretty good. Both the speakers, that one of the tests that I use has like a low frequency roll, and it started to go, and as it goes down, you can see where things drop off. Like both of the speakers were like, and I was like, oh, that's it. That's all I get. I'm getting that much, am I? But I was glad I didn't hear any distortion, and that's what's really fantastic. When you got a speaker like this, a bookshelf speaker, and you send it at full range, what you don't want to see or hear is it trying to do something that it can't do.
Yes.
And all of these speakers did a good job of using the crossover to make sure that nothing,
basically
no
protecting
distortion
themselves a little bit.
Well, and protecting the sound. I'd rather hear nothing than hear distortion.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I agree.
So good little speakers. I'm impressed with them. I'm sending them back. I'm impressed with them.
All right.
So good.
There you go, everyone.
There you go. You're wondering. And I'm really disappointed about the Ultra speakers. And they're probably going to say, we're going to send you another one. I'm like, I don't want another one. It sat there for too long. I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. In the news, via Jonathan, Plex has announced that the NVidia Shield TV can be used as a Plex server, which may remove a barrier to entry for novice users who want Plex but don't want to build an HTPC.
Yeah, this is impressive.
That's good.
This is quite impressive. So, I mean, there was already a Plex client for the NVIDIA Shield TV, given that there is a Android version of the Plex client, but this now lets a small little, it's what, $300, right? So it's not super inexpensive.
Was it 3? I thought it was 2.
Well, I think that was for the 500 gigabyte built-in version is 300.
Oh, right.
Which you might want if you're going to be running the server off, because the whole idea of the server is it holds all your content and then is able to serve it out to all Plex clients. It's also able to act as the player, of course. But if you want to feed other rooms or mobile devices, they're saying the NVIDIA Shield TV has enough processing power. It can do the Plex thing, which is transcoding on the fly, so that it can send things out to your mobile device or whatnot as a transcoded version. So pretty darn cool that Plex found a way to do that on an NVIDIA Shield TV. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm very interested in getting, doing all the streaming stuff and getting everything onto a server. it just seems like a lot of work, to be honest with you, to do
It
all
is a
that.
lot of work.
That's
It's a
the
lot
thing.
of setup.
It's a lot of all the setup and then sticking the discs in and everything. It's just I can't.
Or if you're actually ripping things, to MKV or whatever, it's time consuming.
I did all my CDs once, and that was it. I was done with that.
Exactly.
All right, from Tyler over on Twitter, InfoComm 2016. Which, by the way, if you don't know what that is, welcome to everybody else in the world, because InfoComm is not. It is a very big. A conference in Las Vegas that happens for I think it's the custom installers for like large installations and schools and stuff like that. It's not really geared towards your home enthusiasts.
Yeah, it's not so much consumer level stuff. Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about really briefly is not consumer, it's pro gear that's going to be going into theoretically you could put it into a home theater.
And it sort of gives hints of what might be on the way in the not too distant future.
Yeah, but just know that all the price tags I found were in the 5 figures.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Exactly.
Most of these things that we're talking about cost about 20 grand. So
could be. Some of them were a little less. But
yeah, some of them. Yeah. All right, Optoma. Okay, anyways, InfoComm, several 4K projector announcements, most of them using the new 4K DLP chips, and a lot of them using laser or laser plus phosphor light engines. Optoma was the one that would interest me most. They have a laser ultra short throw model with HDR support planned for launch, an LED model with HDR, a lamp-based model without HDR. And these, I don't know if this is the same one I was reading before, but I think these were in the 4 to 5 grand range. I think.
Well, the lamp-based model was. I think the LED is more in the 6 to 7, and then the ultra short throw is much like Sony's up in the $50,000 range. Okay. But that one you can put 2 inches away from a wall and still get a 100-inch image, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So Panasonic's got a 3-chip laser phosphor model with 27,000 lumens.
Yeah, and that one was like $6,700. It's well under $10,000. So now that's a light cannon. 27,000 lumens.
Seems a little ridiculous. Acer, the V9800 lamp-based single-chip model without HDR, focusing on low noise operation, which is nice. I like.
Yeah, super quiet.
Yeah. And digital projection has a 3-chip laser-driven high brightness.
Yeah, they didn't specifically say HDR, but it certainly has the lumens if they wanted to. And then Projector Central had a big write-up of like everything that used lasers. So, I mean, the point is laser light engines are definitely like kind of here now. The prices are still up there, but we'll see that start to trickle down. I mean, we've had Epson already with their LS10000 in the consumer realm. Although that's a $10,000 projector, but it's exciting to see that laser light engines and that we've got the 4K DLP chips now. So one of the interesting things is I think one of the reasons HDR wasn't as prevalent as you might expect it to be is because you pretty much need a 3-chip system to do HDR properly if you're doing 10-bit HDR with DLP. Because you have to remember that the way DLP works is it flicks the mirror either in line to reflect the light or away to, bounce the light away from going out of the lens. And now it has to do that 1,024 times for every frame for every color, right? So if you only have one chip, it literally can't flick enough times in a second to do 10-bit color. It can't do it. Most of them flick somewhere between 100 and 180,000 times a second, which sounds like a heck of a lot, but if you're thinking 60 frames a second times 3 colors times 1,024 shades for each of those, it goes beyond 180,000. So
I'm trying to find it. I thought it was Optoma, but it's is this one right here? Anyways, yes, this is it, Optoma. Sorry, they have a 4K laser phosphor projector, 4K, but a 0.18 to 1 ultra short throw capability that puts a 100-inch image on the wall from just 2 inches away.
That's right. You put it right in front of your wall.
I mean, that is a big image. I mean, they're like, hey, we could use this home theater. I'm like, yeah, I guess. It's like literally right there. Where's the projector? Right there. Where's the screen? Also right there.
Yep.
It's 2 inches
It's the
away.
front wall. Yeah.
So, anyways, I thought that one was funny.
Yeah.
They did all that. Projector Central write-up. We'll talk about that. E3 is also happening right now. I used to
Sure is.
love reporting on the E3, and people are like, oh, why'd they send you the E3? I'm like, I just watch the same things that everybody else watches. Anyways, the Xbox and Microsoft. So the Xbox One S is a slimmed down 2 terabyte version with 4K output, HDR support, Ultra HD Blu-ray drive.
Yeah.
They learned their lesson from when Sony PlayStation 3 came out with the Blu-ray and nobody else did with their stuff, and suddenly everybody's like, well, if you're gonna have to buy an expensive Blu-ray player anyways, you might as well buy a Sony PlayStation. So that's good. Anyways, it also won't have an external power brick.
Yes.
It's $400. It's coming out in August. A $300 one. It's only 500 gigs, and there's a wait a second. That's a 2 terabyte is $400.
That's right.
1 terabyte is $350, and 500 gigs is $300.
Yeah, so when that 500 gigabyte model comes out, because they've said it's launching in August, starting with the $400 version, which comes with the 2 terabytes, and then the $299 500 gig version and the $349 1 terabyte version are coming a little bit later. I'm not sure how much later, but when the 500 gig version launches for $300, that will be the cheapest Ultra HD Blu-ray player out there, unless Samsung and Philips and Panasonic drop their prices in the meantime. So that would be kind of interesting for Microsoft to have the cheapest Ultra HD Blu-ray player available.
I guess there's a reason to have 2 terabytes on your.
Sure, I've had to erase plenty of games to download more on my Xbox One. So, but yeah, Xbox One S it does not have the upgraded CPU or GPU. It's the same processing power as the Xbox One we have now, and they did say they do have this Project Scorpio, and they went official. They said that's going to be coming out Christmas 2017, so it's still more than a year away. That one will have the extra processing power specifically to handle VR and full 4K gaming. So like this Xbox One Slim, this Xbox One S, it has 4K video output. It can do Ultra HD Blu-ray. It can support 4K streaming from like Netflix and Amazon and that with HDR support, which is cool. But it doesn't do 4K gaming. It's still 1080p gaming, or not even that.
It can't even do 60 frames per second. Right
so
now.
It puts an interesting thing.
Let's all be honest here. It's been kind of a hot mess what's been going on with gaming. These, you've got for a long time, I think for just about ever, there was a really good argument to be made that consoles at the very least had the advantage of very steady frame rates, very solid. You got the game worked. There wasn't all a bunch of patches and stuff that comes out, and now this not anymore.
And now they're like, hey, buy a new one every year, upgrade every year, because apparently we're going to have a new console every year.
Microsoft has also done me a favor and scrapped the DVR update for the Xbox One that they previously announced. So that was nice of them. Oh, now we have a 2 terabyte storage version, but nope. Not interested in helping you out with the whole.
It's weird. So now they have this tuner that, all right, you can watch live TV from an antenna on it and nothing else.
I'm okay with that, to be honest with you.
It's kind of weird.
It is weird, and I am specifically okay with it because I've gotten used to not having TV.
Yeah.
Those of you that have been living with cable for a very long time and are used to your DVRs and stuff, it was horrible when I got rid of it. I was not a happy camper.
Well, hey, now that the NVIDIA Shield is a full-blown Plex media server, you can attach it or connect it to an HD Home Run network tuner and use Plex's version of recording things. Go. So there you go.
Or you can just be like me and just like wait till it comes out on Netflix. Yeah. All right, Sony confirms the 4K PlayStation Neo, but won't be showing it at E3. They're also going to be launching a VR for their current console. Then
this is kind of weird, right? Because we were thinking that the whole point of the more powerful PlayStation Neo, which will have 4K support, is very similar to the Microsoft Project Scorpio on the Xbox side. We were thinking, oh, that's got to be all about VR. They're like, nope. PlayStation VR is still coming out October 13th this year, $400. There won't be a PlayStation Neo at that time. Connect it up to your regular PlayStation 4. So weird off-kilterness from Sony there. I don't know how all that's going to really play out, but
so it might look like you're in Minecraft instead of actual VR.
Could be. I don't know. Little strange they didn't launch together.
Yeah, whatever. Vizio has launched 9 new soundbars with Google Cast. It's like a $35 upgrade. I mean, really. It's a big deal. Anyways, price ranges from 180 up to 500 with 3.0, 2.1, 3.1, and 5.1 options.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting 9 different models, but there they are. So all of the Vizio soundbars that are new now, they all come with Google Cast.
Really not that exciting. You know, this comes with Google Cast. Everything that you can plug a Google Cast into. Nathan sends us Denon and Marantz have announced new AVR models. It seems though Denon will offer a model with 11 amplifiers built in now.
Yeah, that'll be the 6300W, so replacing the 6200, but according to what's been printed, they'll cram 11 amplifiers in there instead of 9. So
yeah, I'm sure that won't compromise the amplifier power.
I don't think they upgraded the power supply.
I don't think so. And Marantz, you're just spreading that same power around 9, 11. And frankly, for most rooms, it's fine anyway, so I don't really care, but it's getting a little ridiculous. Marantz will be bringing 11 speaker support down in price by having it both their SR 7011 and 6011.
Yeah, which is
Nathan,
interesting. I don't know what the 7011's claim to fame is going to be because the 7011 still has 9 amps built in, just like the 6011 will now. So, yeah, going to be some overlap there, but whatever.
Anyways, Nathan's disappointed there were no models that go beyond 11 speakers.
Nobody's doing it yet, other than the crazy Trinov and Steinway Lingdorf.
The biggest feature, though, is that HEOS will be built into several models. And if you remember correctly, I said that if they start doing that, HEOS might actually have a chance. In fact, I said that just recently when we were talking about the music cast on Yamaha.
That's right.
This is so if you're not familiar, HEOS is their kind of
version of Sonos, basically.
Yeah, Sonos-like thing where you have speakers and a little controller, and then you can have amplifiers and all this other stuff, and it had no way to connect up to your receiver whatsoever, which is just plain
other than having like an external box, because they did have like HEOS extenders that were specifically meant to plug into your AV receiver, but that was a little bit of a janky solution. So
yeah, but now they'll have it built in, which means you'll be able to have multi-zone audio support from your receiver wirelessly throughout your house. It's over Wi-Fi, isn't it? Isn't it a Wi-Fi thing?
Yeah, it's Wi-Fi. Of course, you can use Bluetooth on it as well if you're just doing something local. But I did want to mention like the X3300W model, which is replacing the 3200, of course. That's already out. It does not have HEOS, so it's only the higher tier models. It's going to be the 4300 and up in Denon's line, or the SR 6011 and up in Marantz's line. Those will have HEOS built in. The ones that are already announced and out don't. But I did notice the X3300W now has Odyssey Multi-Q XT32 with sub-EQ HT, whereas the 3200 that it replaced was Multi-Q XT. So XT32 coming down in price. That's always encouraging to see. But the 3300 does top out at 7 speakers. Can't go beyond 7.
I wonder what they're going to do next. I'm hoping Odyssey's got something.
I know.
I mean, what else are they going to do? They got to do something. Give us more fur filters, probably. I mean, it's really just going to get more furry. Lastly, over at SVS, our listener Abby Savage was featured in their Artist and Producer Systems Q&A section. And we were mentioned since we have helped Abby out a number of times.
Yeah, SVS even got in touch with us on Twitter directly, and they're like, "Hey, thanks for putting us in touch with Abby, because that's pretty cool." So
yeah, we thought it was pretty cool too when she contacted us out of the blue. I'm always surprised. I'm like, I don't know, it's nice that there's people who listen to podcasts.
That's right.
Anyways, I also saw The Martian this weekend. My son just read it. It was a pretty good movie. It's all right.
It was.
Yeah.
I don't think the extended version is necessary, but it's out there now on Ultra HD Blu-ray.
There's an extended version. It certainly didn't need to be that much longer, I didn't think. Like Castaway, but, on Mars. Yeah. Brock.
We're on to questions.
We're into the questions.
Yes.
Brock's parents are renovating their house, and he asked him to look over their AV contractor's proposal, which I am not seeing on here anywhere, so I guess we didn't get it.
Well, it's this is it. He's
the proposal includes an audio distribution package with 6 pairs of Snap AV ES55 550T in-ceiling speakers powered by 6 Denon HEOS amps and a Denon HEOS Home Cinema, which is a sound bar and subwoofer.
Yeah. It's their soundbar solution.
And what's our thoughts on this?
I'm more for it now that there will be AV receivers that you could hook into the system in the future if you wanted to. Yeah, he was specifically asking about, comparing this to MusicCast, because we have mentioned MusicCast a
Right.
lot more than we've mentioned HEOS on this podcast.
That's because there was absolutely no use for HEOS whatsoever. And there was no reason for us to ever recommend it because it's not as well rounded and as well supported as Sonos is, and it's not as convenient because it's not in the receivers like MusicCast is.
Yeah.
Therefore, why would you recommend it?
That was the thing. Like on this podcast, we're more frequently dealing with people who are using a full-blown AV receiver.
Yes.
And that being the case, it was like, well, if you're going to get a full-blown receiver anyway, and whole house audio is something you want to do, then it made a lot of sense to look at Yamaha with MusicCast because it was built right in. Now that there will be Denon and Marantz models with HEOS built into them, and they're not even getting one yet, and maybe they never will. So this is a different situation, right? But now I'm a lot more on it, and I was looking through HEOS's lineup of streaming music services that they support.
Yeah.
And at the moment, they actually support more than MusicCast does. So there is a positive there for HEOS. Also, one reason why they might be recommending HEOS right now over MusicCast, maybe they just deal with Denon more than Yamaha. Sometimes that's the way it is with dealers.
Yeah.
But I did notice that right now you can get a HEOS amp, which means if you have passive speakers that you want to power, you can just get a HEOS amp. Whereas MusicCast has a MusicCast amp, but it won't be available until August. So if you want to get this set up now, it's like you can't do it with MusicCast. So it all lines up. So honestly, for Brock and for your parents, I don't have any problem with that plan. I don't think that this dealer is steering your parents down a bad road with this idea. I think this is perfectly acceptable. I'm even more for it now that there will be AV receivers that have HEOS built in if they ever want to do that in the future. So I think this is all right.
So is the idea that they're going to have the soundbar and the subwoofer in their wherever their TV,
like TV
is,
room,
and
sure.
the 6 speakers are not for surround sound, but
they're around the house, because 6 pairs around the house, and then they're going to have HEOS amps, which are available right now. So yeah, and then you control it all with a smartphone or tablet application. And it's looking through it, they've set it up pretty simply. I don't think it's quite as slick as the MusicCast amp, but it's still fairly simple. Like he was saying, simplicity of use is like paramount. But what you basically have is 3 tabs along the bottom of the amp. It's like select your source, select where you want to play it, and then choose if you want to like simultaneously have it in other rooms or select a different room to play something different. It's pretty simple. Shouldn't be too hard to use, and it supports a lot of services, including Tidal, which is like one that a lot of other things don't support other than Sonos. So yeah, I think it's good. I think it's all right.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Ease of use is a real sticking point for a lot of people. And Brock, yeah. I feel for you. I have my mother-in-law, and every couple times a year, whenever I can, I cook crawfish, and I mean, I must have taught her how to peel a crawfish 100 times, and you would think after like 5 it would stick, and it doesn't stick. It won't stick. And what I think is that at some point in your life, your brain gets full. And people are like, you know what? I'm not going to learn this. I just flat out refuse. And she's not going to learn how to peel a crawfish. I that's clear. I have to peel crawfish for my 6-year-old son and for my mother-in-law. That's who I have to peel crawfish for. So how technically savvy are your parents? Because I know that my mother-in-law will never learn this. I'm not being mean or anything. I just know that she could never learn what Rob just described. She would never do it. I have had a heck of a time getting her to learn how to use the Chromecast on her TV that I set for her, and it is literally going to HDMI that says Chromecast on it. I mean, the menu comes up and you just scroll to it and press "Give me that one," and that's what happens. That's all you have to do, and she cannot figure it out. So that if your parents are on that line. Well,
they might want to go Sonos then. Sonos is the easiest of them all. It's the most expensive, but it is the easiest of them all. But even that is like you have to at least be able to use an app. That's still necessary for Sonos.
Yeah, but it's going to be a little bit more familiar to you. So maybe walk them through. Maybe download the app on your phone.
Well, they should. I mean, if this is a dealer, they should be able to at least show you the app.
Exactly.
They should be able to do that. As far as the Snap AV in-ceiling speakers goes, I got zero beef with that.
I got no problems
They
with
make
those.
good in-ceiling speakers at reasonable prices. These aren't
Right.
like super overpriced installer speakers, so I'm good with that. So yeah, overall, just get them to look at the HEOS app. If they're good with the HEOS app, the rest of the system is solid, and I think it's a
That's what I would
perfectly
do.
good plan. Yeah.
That's what I would do. And now that there's AV receivers coming out
Yeah.
with it, that's going to make things, because theoretically, you should be able to install a HEOS receiver, and their use would change zero.
Yeah.
In theory,
It's just another thing to play things to or from.
That's
all
right.
it is. Yeah.
Now, Mowar, is that what we're calling it? Mowar?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Anyways, he commented on our on the podcast page, avrant.com.
Yeah.
So there you go. It works.
Proof that we actually do notice the comments.
That's true. Anyways, he's curious about the monoprice 2-channel 300-watt amplifier. He almost bought one a few days ago when the price was discounted at $199.
Mm-hmm.
But not being sure about the quality, he hesitated. Now it's back to $278. Did he miss an opportunity, or would the Emotiva Basex?
Basics.
It's not.
That's what they want to say.
Basex. It's BASX. Basex. A300 be better quality for the money. It would be used to drive a Zone 2 or as a relief amp for his front mains.
Okay, so Monoprice doesn't reveal who the OEM
This
is
is
for
the ATI
No,
amp,
no, that's the Monolith.
That's the Monolith.
That's the Monolith.
Okay.
This is their 2-channel. It even says no logo. Like, it has no logo. I swear it's the audio source. I swear it looks like the audio source. The specs are identical to the audio source.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the audio. I can't say for 100% sure, and maybe somebody would sue me if I said that's what it is. I'm fairly certain it's I can't even say rebadged, an unbadged audio source, 150 watt per channel, 2-channel amp. Yeah. Now the audio source was like the go-to for relatively inexpensive, relatively high wattage, not like super low noise floor, but perfectly acceptable, especially for something like a Zone 2. So that's more or less what you're looking at there. Now, if you're saying you're gonna drive your front main speakers with it, how picky are you about noise floor? That's
or how sensitive are your speakers to noise floor?
Yeah. If it really bothers you when, you get within 3 inches of them and you can hear a hiss coming from the tweeter, if that super duper bothers you, then maybe the Basex would be worth it. Again, I haven't heard the new Emotiva Basex, but like I say, I trust Emotiva's specs because they've never lied on their specs. So when they say they've got 120 dB signal to noise ratio, that should indicate a pretty darn low noise floor, and I believe them. There's no reason they can't make a high-quality Class AB amplifier over at Emotiva. But it's $400, right? It's $400 for 2 channels with that Basex.
Yeah, $399.
So if this is going Zone 2, I'd have zero problem using that Monoprice, which I'm fairly certain is the unbadged audio source, because it was a perfectly decent amp. It's right there with that Dayton APA 100 that I mentioned, except the APA 100 is less powerful, and it's under $100. So yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Basex is it's 150 watts into.
Yeah, and so is the Monoprice. It's 150 watts.
Yeah, one of the things, it's funny. One of the things that you can look at here, whenever you look at a Class AB amplifier, and you see that the rating into 8 ohms is exactly half of the rating into 4 ohms. That is what you should see in a perfect world.
Yes.
If there's no, if all else things being equal,
no distortion rises or anything.
Yeah. What you, there's a.
Yeah. Well, very often it's like into 8 ohms, full frequency with like 0.5 total harmonics or 0.03 or whatever spec they chose. And then when it doubles down in power into 4 ohms, it's suddenly only at 1 kilohertz and at like 1.0% total harmonic distortion or something like that. Like they allow for a lot higher distortion and a lot smaller frequency range, and then you can double the power.
So there's basically there's 2 ways that they get away with this, because that they want to show you a doubling of power.
Sure.
At those 2 things, so they could change the specs, which is what Emotiva did. They have the 20 to 20, the total harmonic distortion at 0.1% into 8 ohms.
There you go.
But the 300 watts into 4 ohms is at 1 kilohertz with a less than 1%.
Yeah.
So at 0.999 instead of 0.1.
Right.
So the other way you'll see this happen is you'll see that 20 to 20 in the same distortion, and it'll be a doubling. Instead, what's happening usually is they're underrating the 8 ohm
There's
rating,
that too. Yeah.
and then the 4 ohm rating is actually true. So both of these are probably there are two ways to do it. This way, you get this is a 150-watt amp into 8 ohms
Hmm.
at a reasonable distortion, driven
Yeah.
full range. Whereas it's a little bit less than that. It's just normal. It's probably something like 250 or something at the same thing. But anyways, just one thing to look at with
But
stuff.
yeah,
So
you're looking at when they're driving, full power, which is unusual, but that's where the spec is rated. The
always.
Emotiva is claiming 120 dB signal to noise ratio, whereas the Monoprice and the audio source, if you look at them separately, both are at 103 dB reference to full power signal to noise ratio. So there is 17 decibels difference. There's 17 decibels more noise coming out of that Monoprice or out of the audio source, which might be completely different, but I don't think it is, versus the Emotiva. So yeah, I mean, in zone 2, I wouldn't worry about it. If it was driving my overhead speakers, I wouldn't worry about it. If it's driving my surround back speakers, I wouldn't worry about it. If it's driving my front speakers,
I would probably
maybe
worry
I'd care.
Yeah, that being said, I agree with you. I would be perfectly okay with it, saving the money and
Yes.
using the Monoprice amp for zone 2. If you're not thinking that your main speakers are having an issue anyways,
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry
Yeah, for
about
like
them.
outdoor speakers or something, I'd be totally fine with it.
Gary, Infinite Gary,
Yep.
says Gene over at Alcoholics posted a YouTube video going through how to set up an AV receiver using Gene's Denon AVP-A1 processor. While Gene commented, it is old now. While Gene commented in the video that his setup was not typical, he pointed out some confusing setting choices like options for 3 subwoofers in the setup menu, setting front speakers to large and yet still giving them a 250 hertz crossover, and setting the subwoofer output to LFE plus mains.
Yeah.
Why would he cross over those speakers at 250?
He is doing very unusual stuff, and
It's because of he's using a DSP too. I mean,
he's using the mini DSP outside of it, which he didn't go into at all in the video. And he's got status acoustic speakers, which have like completely separate cabinet. They sit on top of like 6 10-inch drivers each, firing forward and back. Yeah, his setup is very non-typical, very atypical setup. And Gene does describe all that in the video. I'm like, you're Gene from Audioholics, could you not have just grabbed a normal AV receiver? Because nobody else in the world has this setup. Nobody does, right? So, I mean, nothing he said was wrong, and he describes how his setup is completely different from most people. And he says, like, look, 90 to 99% of people will have different settings than I do. So if you're listening to what he's saying, that's fine. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to be seeing the images and looking at the numbers and maybe replicate them, and that would be horrible for most people.
You don't want to do that. Those speakers are like 50 grand, and they're really, really unusual. They're very, very unique. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he's got a really weird setup. Plus, he's got 4 or 6 subs in that room, and his room is it's a massive room that's got lots and lots of
over 6,000 cubic feet, and it's an L, and
it's an L. It's got lots of treatment. So he doesn't really have a right wall, so his left wall is like heavily treated, and this is why speakers blow up in his room sometimes, because they get swallowed up, and you have to keep turning up the volume just to hear them.
Yeah, so
that's why, Gary.
It is a very unusual setup, and do please nobody replicate his settings just by looking at the images and the numbers. That would be a horrible way to do it.
No, you need to buy his speakers in his room first, and then you can replicate.
I do wish that he had just taken a modern day Yamaha or Denon or something like that and gone through that I think that probably would have been less confusing for more people. I can certainly see people getting confused by this, but if you do carefully listen to everything that he actually says, it's okay. He puts all the caveats in there, so that's what's up.
Gary also pointed out that AV Forums podcast posted an interview with Stephen Auld from Dolby. He mentioned that they're expecting Ultra HD Blu-ray players with Dolby Vision support to launch in early 2017. Do we think Oppo will have Dolby Vision support? Have we heard anything about players from Denon Marantz or other brands? And if Dolby Vision players are still several months away, will studios even bother putting it on discs?
Yeah.
All
question marks.
Those are a lot of question marks. First of all, do I think Oppo will have it? No, I do. I think Oppo will have
Yeah.
everything because
Well,
Oppo always has everything eventually.
I mean,
Well,
they've been stressing that the replacement for the 103, because currently they have the 103 and the 105 in their lineup, and now they're going to have new Ultra HD Blu-ray players being added. They've been stressing that the replacement for the 103 will be here before the end of 2016, like Christmas time 2016. And if Dolby's saying we're not expecting to see any players with Dolby Vision support until early next year, maybe it'll be a case where the replacement for the 105 has it and the replacement for 103 doesn't. It's possible.
yeah.
I don't know. I would expect that if Dolby Vision is something that's in any Ultra HD Blu-ray player, something from Oppo will have it.
Yeah, it will have it eventually. Let's be honest here. They're still putting out players that are backwards compatible with DVDAs and SACDs. They're the only ones still doing that.
The other thing was there was an announcement out of Japan just this week that they now have a single chip, like a system on chip thing being built by I forget which company it was. There's only a handful of those huge system on chip manufacturers, but they were announcing that they now have a chip that has Dolby Vision and HDR on the one chip. So now that that chip exists, it can start being incorporated into players that are being designed now, or knew that this chip was coming. So I believe Dolby when they say there will be players that have it. Universal, I believe, has said that they intend to have discs with Dolby Vision on them. Sony is already mastering in Dolby Vision. They're only releasing in HDR10 right now, but they seem fairly bullish on it. The only other brand I know has a player in the works is Sony, and I would assume that PlayStation Neo is going to have it when it comes out. So I think there's more coming. I haven't heard officially from brands like Denon Marantz. It wouldn't shock me if they're working on something. Yeah, I think it's kind of
it's just like metadata though, isn't it? Though, right? I mean,
it is.
So can it just pass it through, and then have the TV
For
do
some reason, it says there needs to be a chip on there. I don't know why. Maybe it's the chip that converts Dolby Vision down to other things, right?
Yeah, that seems more.
I think that's probably what it is, because like you have to realize some people will have an Ultra HD Blu-ray player that's connected to a 4K television that does not have HDR of any kind, which means whatever's on the disc needs to be converted down to 8-bit standard dynamic range Rec 709 color. So if it's encoded as Dolby Vision, you need a chip in the player that can bring it down to standard dynamic range and 8-bit. So that's probably what that chip is there to do.
Yeah, I think getting it on the disc is the most important
really
thing.
is.
I know we'll see it on the disc.
No,
now,
I
whether
know
or not the player actually needs to have it, on there, in there is, I think, at least in my mind, is kind of debatable because it can pass through the bits. It seems like it would be something that your TV could disregard or use.
Yeah.
Based on what it was, as part of the HDCP handshake or something.
Yeah, no, I know there was one studio that says they fully intend to put it on. I think it was Universal. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was them who said it. Might have been Paramount. I'm not 100%. And Warner usually does, because Warner just likes to support everything new. So I think it'll happen.
All right, Nick. Nick has come up with an idea for his basement home theater construction. Previously, he was going to build one wall. This is the guy with the I-beam thing.
Yeah,
right?
So I'm putting up an image right now, and right now I'm showing a simplified version of his original plan. So that should show up on my screen if you're watching the YouTube video of it.
Yes, you will be able to see it on the screen. And this is the one with had the beam going behind his couch, and he was sitting awfully close to his wall, but that was okay because he likes to sit close. Anyways, previously he was going to build one wall to either close off his theater area or block off his hallway to avoid noise coming from the utility room. But now he's considering building two walls so that he can have a rectangular theater and avoid having a support pole smack dab in the middle of his theater space, meaning that he's going to build the wall right along the pole.
So I have switched out the image if you are seeing it, but he's making a much smaller room by constructing two walls. It'll turn it into a rectangular room. And yeah, like Tom just said, it'll basically hide the support pole that would stick down. That will be now in the middle of his left wall, hidden behind the wall itself.
Yeah. Okay. So the only thing that's really kind of weird about this is that there is, I don't really understand. There's that closet hiding the support.
There's more support beams in there.
Yeah. So. It seems like the back wall should be stretched back to that so it doesn't look weird. I don't know, but whatever.
I don't know if you'd be able to even walk through this little this little bit that's
Yeah, there's a little
that's
bit
left behind
between.
the
There's
back
like
wall there.
like a standalone closet in the middle of
Yeah,
like just. It looks like a couple of like a foot and a half away from where this room's corner would be. So it
yeah.
seems like maybe you could make that make a little bit more sense or enclose all of that in something or something. I mean, even if you stretch that wall all the way back to the bottom of where that
And still had the support pole within the
yeah,
theater.
and then
Yeah.
take another wall and put it, I know we're building more walls here, but anyways,
I think
from
his goal was to get a rectangle, right? So that's what
no,
he
I
did.
understand that, and
Yeah.
that's fine. Maybe I don't understand exactly what's going on in the other, like the
Yeah, I think you do.
to the right. Anyways, I don't really care. All right. So number one, what do we think of this new layout? And keep in mind that even though this means the room will be smaller, he likes to sit just one screen width away when watching movies, so a shorter distance from the first row to the screen. So he has a shorter distance to the from the first row to the screen. So he's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. He's kind of smack dab in the middle of the room, which acoustically
That
is
was
not the best.
Yeah, that was my one concern, is that it really looks like he's that front row is now very close to being right in the middle of the
Yeah.
room lengthwise.
Yeah, that's the only thing that concerns me about what I'm seeing here. As far as making the room smaller and all that, I don't care. Knock yourself out. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the smaller room is easier to pressurize when it comes to bass.
Yeah, you're gonna have
Yeah.
to rock that place, dude. Yeah.
Does he have enough space on one side of the couch or other to make it to the back row? Like, it looks really squishy. Is that even 2 feet?
I don't know if this is to scale, but if
He
it's
says
not,
it's pretty darn close to being to scale. I don't think he's
what
even got
are
2
those feet on the side? If he doesn't have
Yeah,
2 feet,
those
well,
are feet on
yeah.
the side.
Well, you know what, dude, you're gonna have to push that one couch all the way to one wall so people can walk through.
Well, I mean, what would be the right hand side of the room? He's got just barely 2 feet on the side of that couch. You might hit your head on the right surround speaker as you walk by trying to get to that second row. I mean, what you could do is put the smaller couch in front and the larger couch in back. That would solve the issue.
Yeah, they could do that.
Yeah.
But I imagine he wants that small. Anyways, it is what it is.
Well, I mean, how many people care about sitting as close as he does? It's probably him and his wife who care about being that close, and everyone else can sit in the back.
I think maybe he wants it that close so he can lie down.
Could
That's
be.
why I would
That could
put the
be.
couch up front. But anyways, it's other than the distance in walking past, I have no problems. Where it is in the room. Second, he already has a Send Acoustic Sierra 2 front speakers. He's planning on getting a Sierra Sat speakers for surrounds. His ceiling height will be low, however, about 7. So a little bit over 7 feet, 7 feet 2 inches.
Yeah.
So he needs in-ceiling speakers for the Atmos positions. What we suggest is a decent match for the Sierra speakers. Well, I suggest anything is a decent Atmos speaker, to be honest with you. Really, literally anything is good for Atmos. I don't think you need to acoustically match your Sierra speakers. You're going to need something small, I would imagine, and
well, in ceiling, right? He's going for in
in-ceiling.
ceiling.
So I wouldn't be. You don't need a lot of bass coming out of them, so just get something small.
I'll throw it out there. I like Focal as a halfway decent match, just because they're fairly neutral, just like the Sierra speakers are. In my opinion, they're like one of the least offensive in terms of if you really care about timbre matching, which you really don't have to with the Atmos. I agree with Tom on that. But the Focal, you could go for their Chorus 700 series. So it's with the IC 706, I think. So they're not crazy expensive. They're certainly not the cheapest in-ceiling speakers out there, but they're not insanely expensive. So I'll throw that out there as a recommendation. I think they'd be a good match.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the picture now. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's planned for top front and top rear in-ceiling speakers. His front row will be his primary row, but he figures that he will still use the rear row of seats, seating a fair amount. So he doesn't want the rear row to have extremely compromised sound. Are the planned positions good, or should he adjust them? Let's look. Okay, I did have a problem with his speaker placements to start off with. First of all, yeah, he's got a projection screen on the false wall. He's got the center, which looks like it's off center for some reason. I don't know why that is, but I'm hoping that that's not the case.
I think that's just an optical illusion there, because the box is above where the C is.
Yeah, I think that is too. So I'm imagining the center is right smack dab in the middle of that thing. I actually feel like his speakers, because he's got a very big screen and he's
Yes.
got the speakers on the outside of the screen. I kind of wish he would have an acoustically transparent screen and put the speakers
Oh,
behind.
it's going to be acoustically transparent. That's why it's on a false wall.
Yes, but so then why is his right front and his left front so wide? Because they're
I'm
outside
not.
the screen.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure because it's sitting only one screen width away. What are you already getting? They're already getting like a 48-degree angle, something like that. So they
Yeah.
could be within the borders of the screen.
Are you going to do the math right in front of us?
I guess so.
There you go.
Maybe I'll switch off the image.
That's all right. So, yeah, I think that your speakers are a little bit too wide based on what I'm seeing here, because all the rest of them are that wide too. I think they should be squished in a little bit. And I know that won't put them on the outside of your couches, but I don't think you have to worry about that. I think putting them closer together behind the screen in some way is better. Then that lines everything else up a little bit better. So you have your right surrounds, your left surrounds, which are, I think, a perfectly fine place. You know, if you're going to be using your couch, the rear couch, quite a bit, I would think about having dual surround speakers, just the way we've described it before, where you have a right surround just behind the first couch and another right surround. It's running parallel or series or whatever it is behind the second couch in order to get that nice and wide and everybody hears everything from the sides like they're supposed to. But then that's going to put that side surround awfully close to your rear surround, which frankly in a room this size, because how wide is this room? It's not wide. I mean, how long is this room? Do we know? We don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going by. So I mean, it looks like it's going to be just a little bit more than 12 feet wide and about 18 and a half feet long, if he goes with this particular plan.
Yeah, those surround backs are perfectly usable for your front row of seating, but they're going to be awfully close to your rear seats.
That's okay, if you're going to that's okay for surround backs.
You think so? Those surround backs are only going to be like a foot and a half from the back of the couch.
Yeah, but for his primary row, they're fine.
Oh, for his primary row, I said it's fine.
Yeah,
it's just the second one. But I don't know that you would want to have dual surround speakers on the sides and surround backs.
Oh, I see. Well, I don't think he's planning on dual side surrounds anymore.
I'm suggesting that he should.
That he should, and then nix the surround backs.
Nix the surround backs. Yes.
Yeah, I guess he could. I honestly don't have a other than if he's going for the whole thing where he's going to be sitting one screen width away. I worked it out. That's a 53-degree field of view. It's a 53-degree angle. It's plus or minus 26.5 degrees to left and right. So yeah, that front left and right speakers can definitely be behind the screen.
Right.
That totally makes sense. And then I don't have a problem with having surround backs. I don't have a problem with having one pair of side surround speakers. I would just go to the thing that I've been saying, which is put the top rears 5 feet in front of the surround backs and the top fronts 5 feet in front of those. Now, yes, that will mean that all of those overhead speakers are ahead of that rear couch.
Yeah.
But it's still a matter of you want the proper separation and you want the primary row to still be the primary row. And you'll still get a sense of sounds coming from overhead when you're in that back row.
They'll just be all in front of you.
They'll just all be in front of you, yeah.
You're sitting in the second row.
That's about all I would personally adjust. I don't vehemently agree with what Tom said, but I think it's okay. I think his plan is relatively okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I think I'd be more inclined to having good surround for all the seats rather than having bad surround for the back seats and then surround backs for everybody. With the surround backs aren't going to be great for the couch right next to him. It's going to be too loud. And
it's a bit of a toss up.
For me, I would think I would rather have just a 5-point. What are we calling this for? 5.2.4 or 4.4 because he's got 4 subs as well, which is a little. We'll get to that in a second. So. Yeah, I have a suggestion. Rob says you're fine. There you go. He seems to have set his mind on getting rhythmic subwoofers, and he tends to have 4 of them, one in each corner, for the most uniform bass from seat to seat possible. With full reference volume output capability for movies with the lowest distortion possible. So, with which rhythmic model should he go for? He's thinking ported would be a better choice than sealed for him. And sorry, that was a face I made. And he's willing to go as high as the, what are we calling this? I just clicked off of it. The FVX15 model.
Right, in Rhythmic's lineup there, which is
Yeah.
$1,000 subwoofer.
Yeah. You do not need a ported sub in this room, especially not if you're gonna have 4 of them. There's literally no subwoofer that we could ever recommend of any of the manufacturers that make us, like the cheapest one from any one of these manufacturers by itself will pressurize the room.
Yeah, if the room is now like 12.5 by 18.5,
literally will pressurize any of them.
There'll be plenty of room gain, especially having all 4 of them in corners. In fact, if you want the crazy deepest extension down into the 10 hertz realm, then a sealed sub might actually do you even better. If you want to be, with Rhythmic there, then certainly like their F12, 4 of those would be absolutely fine in here. And they'd be smaller. They'd be easier to put in the corners. I would love to put cylinders in here, but there's no reason to even spend that much.
No, there's really not. Honestly, the SB1000s, the SB1000s from SVS, the smallest ones they make, the smallest HSU that they make. I actually would stay away from HSUs, to be honest with you, not in this application. I would want a small sealed box, and Rhythmic makes one, right? They make like 12-inch box one.
They have
Is that the
F12? Yeah.
That's the one I would go for. You do not need a port.
It would sound great in here, by the way, too.
It
sound fantastic.
I don't know how Rob feels about this, and I know that 4 is better than 2, but I don't know that 4 it gives you that much benefit over 2. 2 is the big benefit.
Yeah, I mean, 2 is a huge benefit over 1, and then 4 is like a refinement of that benefit. It's still a benefit, though.
I'm not saying it's not a benefit. I didn't say that.
Especially
I said it wasn't a huge benefit.
He can only put them in corners, right? Like when we talk about diagonally opposite corners, that is not as good as being able to have the middle of 2 opposing walls. So, if you can go to all 4 corners, that gets you even better than 2 on the middle of opposing walls. So, if the budget isn't
This is what I don't want him to do. I don't want him to set up this room, hook up 2 subwoofers, hook up all 4 subwoofers, and then at one point turn off 2 of them and go, what? Why did I get 2 extra of these? That's what I don't want him to do.
Yeah.
You will not know. I don't think that you will notice the difference between 2 versus 4 on that front row.
Well, if you go SVS, you can return them for free. There's an option.
If I were you, sir, and like I said, I got no problems with you buying 4 subs, but I also have a problem in general with people overspending when they don't need to.
Right.
I would buy 2 and hook them up and go, yeah, that's awesome. And then decide whether or not you wanted to buy 2 more, and make sure when you get the 2 more, whichever 2 more you get, you can return for free or little, and then hook them up and decide from there. You could buy all 4 and do the same thing, but I'm feeling once you get the 2, you're gonna be good. The difference between 1 and 2 is so massive in my mind. Like the troubles I had trying to get 1 subwoofer to really work, and we're going to talk about this more with another question coming up. The troubles that I had getting 1 subwoofer to really sound good in more than 1 seat, and even honestly in 1 seat, compared to having 2 subwoofers, was like night and day. But there is no other benefit. There's no night and day difference you're going to get by going above 2, in my mind. I just don't.
I don't wholly agree. So
I don't.
I'd be fine with going with the 4, but yeah, you don't need to go ported. You don't need to go super high output. Totally unnecessary.
No. All right. And where would be the best place to put the? He has a lot of questions. Where
he does? Yeah.
So the door, you're gonna put it back up so I can click on it. So
okay. Hold on a second. I'll get there. Yep.
So he wants to know where he should put this door.
You don't have a ton of options.
Well, right now he has it on the left front wall.
Wall towards the front. Now he's showing it as a right-handed door, which looks like it's going to smack into the couch the way he has it. So my options are either put the smaller couch in front, which I think is probably a good idea anyway, or make it a left-handed door. I think a left-handed door would make more sense in here. But other
Well,
than
I
that, I don't
actually,
see where else you could put it, to be honest. So
my door is almost in exactly the same place. It actually is right next to the couch. It's about half
mm,
the door opens exactly, the right-handed door, just like that, opens into the couch, and the couch is like placed like half in the middle of the door. So the front of the couch is like right in the middle of the door, but the
mm,
door is recessed about a foot and
uh,
a half to 2 feet, and that makes all the difference. So that allows you to open that door and get in. Now, when you open the door, it doesn't hit the couch, but it gets awfully close.
yeah, yeah.
Now, my couch is not as big as yours, though it is in the center of the room. It's like the small couch in the back. It's in the center of the room. So when it
Yeah.
opens, you can see it, even where you have your door right now on this. When you open it, if you had that small couch, it would clear the couch,
Yes.
but just barely. So you have to open the door and then step in and then close the door before you can move around. But then you can actually move around, which is kind of nice. The other option you could have is putting it at the back of the room, I suppose. But I kind of like where you have it right now. I would leave it there. You could
Yeah.
do what Rob says and go left-handed instead of right-handed. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know that you'll necessarily need to do that if you move
Well,
your
that's pretty
couches
easy.
around.
If you're putting in a door, you have your choice. So I would
That is
just
true.
make it a left-handed door, so you don't have to worry about hitting a couch.
He's got enough room here, but I wonder if when he actually, because I'm seeing how he's got this, is it 18 feet?
Yeah,
18
about 18
feet.
and a half feet long. Yeah.
So I guess the difference between my room and his room is that he's got his couches all moved up about 2 feet more than mine are. So he's got a
Right.
little walkway behind his back couch of about 2 feet.
Yeah.
Right. And my back couch is on the wall.
Right.
And my front couch is not in the middle of the room.
Right.
So there's the difference. I was trying to figure out whether or not that was actually a viable position. But I really do think those surround back speakers are going to be too close to that rear couch. I do. I do think it's going to be an issue. I'm just saying that. All right, you can turn that thing off.
Okay.
I just pressed something. Oh crap! What's happening to my computer now? All right. Anyways, so how high should you make the riser for the second row? Keep in mind that low ceiling height and the fact that he'd like a 115-inch 16:9 screen and still maintain good sight lines for the second row. Well, put that screen as high as you can. Let's just start with that. That's going to want to be awfully high. Also, you could get a low front couch. That would help as well. So think European style couches in the front there so that you could make sure that you are not having heads any higher than they absolutely have to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're going to want to put that screen awfully close to the ceiling to begin with. That will help.
I mean, normally what you want to try and maintain is the same ceiling height as a door, which is 6'8". Now in your situation, that would mean only what, a 4-inch riser. So that's not getting much. So like a 6-inch riser is fine. You're allowed to have portions of your ceiling be as low as 6.5 feet. So you can't go much more. You can't do much more when you got a 7'2" tall ceiling. So
yeah, you get about.
You could do a 6-inch riser. That's what you could do.
How tall are your friends? Okay, just remember that you want them to be bumping in their heads back there. And if you're not using that back row very much, maybe you don't care.
Yeah. No, I think a 6-inch riser is good. Ray has chimed in a bunch of times. Of course, he's recommending his ULS 15 subs, but that is way overkill for this room, Ray. So you don't need to do those. But he actually sent us a calculator for a riser calculator. So we'll include that link in the show notes over at avrant.com. Whenever we talk about stuff that has links, we post those up at avrant.com. So there's a riser height calculator, but honestly, 6 inches is pretty much your answer.
Yeah. Lastly, he's more concerned about getting sound getting into his theater versus sound getting out. He doesn't want to hear his HVAC or his water pipes. So what soundproofing measures do we recommend? He wants to keep as much floor space and ceiling height as he can. Yeah. So if double drywall and clips and hat channels and all that stuff can be avoided, he'd like to.
So, I mean, 2 of his walls now are exterior walls, so you don't have to worry about
those.
Don't worry
about those, yeah.
And it looks as though he's going to be building a double wall, like a double stud wall anyway, so that he can put it around the support pole.
Yeah.
So by building a double stud wall, I mean, honestly, to me, decoupling the 2 sides of the wall does more than almost any of the other soundproofing measures. Now, naturally, you're going to fill that cavity in with insulation, which also helps. So if you've done those two things,
Yeah,
right?
usually naturally you don't. Like interior walls a lot of times don't have
No, but
insulation
I'm
in
saying
them.
for him, like
But yes,
that's a thing
don't
you would do.
assume that whoever you have build
Oh,
these
right,
walls are going to
right.
do that without you telling them, "Hey, fill that up with insulation." And they're going to
Yeah,
say, "Why?" And you're going to say, "Because
it's
I
an
don't
interior
want
wall.
I want sound to not to go through." And they're going to go, "That's weird. You're weird."
Yeah, but by having a double stud wall, and if you put insulation in that double stud wall, I don't think at that point you need to go double drywall and green glue or, clips and hat channels or resilient channels. I think you'd be in pretty good shape
Yeah,
just
I
with a
wouldn't
double
worry
stud
too much
insulated wall.
about it. And the HVAC is another issue, and we've talked about,
Right.
that sort of thing before. And
No, I mean, this is a perfect situation for the air exchange model,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Do not have forced air going into your theater. Just have the outside part of the basement being the part that's heated and air conditioned, and then just use an air exchange system to get air in and out of the theater. That is way quieter and way easier. So that is an easy choice there. And then I think the other part is he'll now have a portion of his back wall which is exposed to the rest of the basement. There's no real reason I'm seeing that he couldn't make that a double stud wall as well. Right now in his drawings he's not showing it as a double stud wall, but I think that would be fairly easy to do. So
mm.
if you made that into a double stud wall as well, same thing, insulated inside, I think you'd be in good shape. And that
Honestly,
way you haven't lost any floor space inside the theater.
yeah, honestly, if you have insulation in all your walls, you're not going to be hearing a whole lot from the rest of the house anyways, and what
Yeah,
you're going to
and
hear is pretty minor.
once
Now,
once the two sides of the drywall are decoupled from each other by being double stud, that's a huge improvement
yeah,
just
yeah.
doing that. So
All right, that's the end of that.
yes.
Johnny. Last week, Ken described what? Why are we talking about Ken? Oh, anyways. Last week, Ken described his theater, which is completely open on the left side, and was saying how his options for subwoofer replacement were restricted to both being in front, directly under his main speakers. I'm sorry, at both being at the front, directly under his main speakers, acting as stands. Or Ken said he could use a lone higher output subwoofer in Austin, and you recommended still using two subs. Johnny has heard us saying how placing two subs across the room from one another is important, and avoid putting both subwoofers on the front wall. So what gives? Are we
Yeah.
saying there's still benefits to using two subwoofers, even if they're both on the front wall?
There can be. You just kind of have to brute force it a bit by adjusting phase, which is a pain in the rear and a ton of trial and error, which is why we suggest having them across the room from one another, because that is so much easier. But you can still definitely have benefits of two subs, even if they're both on the front wall, which is something SVS always shows, and we disagree with them about that. But since they have fully variable phase, and Ken was talking about getting SVS subwoofers with that fully variable phase, it can be done. It'll just be a bigger hassle. That's all.
Yeah, and honestly, in this room, and I'm not sure if you're not showing it, are you?
Yeah, I'm showing it. There's some very good looking hosts around that poker table.
All right, I'll click on it. Yeah, if you're looking at the room, there is no across the room in this
That's right.
space. Yeah. There, you'd have to put either one in the living room and one in the kitchen,
That's right.
or one in the bathroom,
Yeah. And one under the poker
dining table or something. I don't know. There's not really no super good solutions here.
Yeah.
For across the room. And since his seat is on the back wall, he's really
Yeah.
between a rock and a hard place here. One higher output sub, which frankly the higher output really doesn't make that much difference. One sub versus two subs, you've at least got a chance with two subs.
Yeah,
with
like even if he went with the one sub, he's still very limited in where he can place that one sub. Now you've got even fewer options to work with. So
yeah. So
that's
I think that I would have. I mean, I think Rob's right, but I think I would have personally, had I been on that podcast, but I was not invited that week. Had I been on the podcast, I probably would have said I probably would have gone, you know what? Go with the one sub. That's what I probably would have said. That's probably what I would have said, because I don't think, I mean, the dialing in one sub in that situation is going to be very hard. Dialing in two subs in that situation, while I think the end result will be better,
yeah,
is going to be nigh impossible to do.
Very time consuming.
Yes, it is going to take you just forever, dude. Seriously. So if he's willing to put in the work, though, then I would say go to.
Yeah.
All right, John. This is from Twitter. John often joins us on our hangout party after parties. After we do these podcasts, we do often hold a hangout party. We will not be doing, well, we will have a short one tonight because I have to get up early again.
Yeah.
And a while back, we were talking about TV shows when Orphan Black got mentioned. We do often talk about TV shows.
We sure do.
And other things. He has started watching it and he loved it. And is now caught up on all previous episodes. So which other TV shows do we recommend that are of that same level of quality? I have not watched Orphan Black, but I've heard good things of it. He specifically asked about Lost, since he never watched that series when it was airing. I watched it when it was airing. I got through 1.5 seasons before I said, oh, I just can't take this crap anymore. And I stopped watching it. It was just like, I don't know. It's a polar bear. It's not a polar bear. It's a what is it? It's something. It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I give up. Whatever it is, I don't care anymore, and I'm not watching this show. I felt the same way about Alias. I think I got through 2.5 seasons of Alias. Yeah. Now, I really liked Alias when it started, and I was like, oh, this is so good. It's the greatest, best show ever. And I got through 2.5 seasons, I went, are they good? I can't tell who's good. I can't remember who's the good guy, who's the bad guy anymore because they kept flipping sides and they're working with. It's just I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, Lost to me was very up and down. It was certainly slowed down in the middle, and then they found out how many more seasons they had left, so they kind of picked it back up. And then the ending was super disappointing. To me, it's like the bad ending doesn't take away from all the good parts, and there were plenty of good parts, plenty of really good parts in Lost. But it was sort of uneven. It was an uneven series.
Yeah,
but I think it's worth watching. Now, of course, I think he's already watching Game of Thrones, so, obviously that gets thrown out there. I'm going to zip through super fast, a huge list. These are gigantic. I already talked to John on Twitter. He's like, he hasn't seen any of these. So, dude, you got a huge selection of things I'm going to throw out there.
While you're saying them, I'm going to tell you whether I agree. You go.
Okay. 1, Breaking Bad.
No.
That's top priority. Should be.
Nope.
Mad Men. Awesome show. Although Mad Men's very different from Orphan Black. It's nothing like Orphan Black.
Yeah, I watched. I've only watched part of one episode. I tried to get my wife to watch it.
You cannot judge that series on one episode.
I'm not judging it on anything. That's why I didn't say yes or no. I'm saying that is on my list of things to watch too.
But yes, very good. Daredevil, great series on Netflix.
Very good. Yes, though it does have some good and bad stuff. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Jessica Jones, which is a partner series to Daredevil. They tie in a little bit, part of the Marvel thing. They've only had one season, so it's quick to get through, only 13 episodes. The Americans, which is
haven't seen it.
So good. It's like the best thing, and nobody's watching it. But they got picked up for 2 more seasons so they can finish their story. So it's like, good. It's going to have a proper ending.
Is that on Amazon? I think it's on Amazon. I might have to watch it.
It might be, yeah. It's FX that airs it, but I don't know what streaming service has it. Mr. Robot.
Haven't heard of it.
Great series. Fargo, another FX series.
Started after I lost whatever. Yeah.
12 Monkeys, which I really, really like.
I like
really,
the movie.
Really good. Yep. Person of Interest, which is criminally underwatched and is awesome.
Excellent. Yes. My wife and I power through that entire 4 series. Yeah. Like that's all we watched. Every time we came in here together, that's what we watched. Nothing else. No movies. No additional TV shows.
There are a lot of episodes though.
There are
a full network show. There's like 23 a season.
23 a season, and there's 4 seasons that are out on Netflix, and it's worth watching.
But it is ending strong. I'm watching the 5th and final season, which is shortened. It's only 13 episodes in the 5th and final season. But at least they get to properly finish the story, and it is going strong. So if they stick the landing, it's going to be awesome. The 100, or just the 100, which is from CW.
Okay, now I just started that series this week. I think I have to watch it 2 or 3. I don't know.
It gets stronger. It gets stronger as it goes.
It would have to because it's starting off very much like every CW show. It's like
teen
I'm sorry. No, we're gonna take all the supermodels on our show and strand them onto a place.
People are darn good looking for being prisoners who are dropped off on a planet that is irradiated. They are very.
That's right. We're gonna take all the prettiest people because they make us feel bad about ourselves, and we're gonna shoot them off onto the irradiated planet and see if they can live and how many heads they grow.
Penny Dreadful is another show. If for nothing else than Ava Green, just to watch her just chew up the scenery and shred every other actor to pieces.
I think I do.
It's kind of like the classic monster characters a little bit. It's like a weird spin on them.
It's not like Grimm, is it? It's like Grimm.
No. It's not like Grimm.
I watched a couple episodes of that. That was sorry.
Bates Motel, which please everybody watch Bates Motel. just for the two lead actors. The story is ridiculous, but the two lead actors are amazing.
She is. I watched two or three episodes. She creeped me right the heck out.
Oh, she is awesome.
She is. She was like, I'm like, oh God, she's gonna touch him in an inappropriate place at any second now. And I'm like, I cannot turn away. It is very disturbing. I am going to watch some more of this. She is crazy good.
Fantastic good. Yeah.
Yes.
Hannibal, which is sadly over after 3 seasons. They
got my God, that show. I love
good.
Hannibal.
Yes.
That is he.
You know, the best. Short. It's short. There's so few episodes, so just watch the darn thing.
The best part of that whole thing is you're watching Hannibal. You're like, that guy he's not human. You could just look at him and you go, I mean, like everything he does, you go, he's not reacting in the way that you're supposed to react to these things. He's thinking about this in a way that I'm not. Oh my God, he just hit that person. You know.
Yeah, this is definitely a different take on Hannibal Lecter, but it's a very good one, a very strong one. Really,
it is excellent. Good. Yes.
Nikita, which was a show that was criminally underwatched when it was on, is completely over. I don't know where you can watch it. I think it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Yeah, but I thought there was like 6 seasons of that crap, isn't there?
No, there was 5, and like 3 of them were short, so it's not too bad. The first 2 seasons are fantastic, and so just at least watch those. Salem, which is like nobody watches that show, but I like it. It's fun. Salem Witch Trials. And then Awake, which was only on for 1 season. I have no idea where you can find it. It's Jason Isaacs. It's one of the best damn things I've ever seen.
Okay, I'll watch that. That's on Netflix. It's on my
it's like 10 episodes.
Okay, I'll watch that.
Oh, Jason Isaacs, like tear your heart out. Holy crap.
Now, if you're looking for more light watching,
those are all heavy. Like dramas, dark, people getting killed.
Like my wife loves Person of Interest, but we watched recently. We finished the Kimmy Schmidt thing that's on Netflix.
Yeah, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
I can't stand that show. It makes me want to tear my little eyes out. But
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, though, Brooklyn Nine-Nine should be watched. I love that show.
Oh, it's not on there. But that, my wife really likes Kimmy Schmidt. What's the one that's got the con man that works with the FBI agent? Oh God, it was on.
So many of those.
So many of those. It was the first one though, I think, that I really saw. Anyways, I'll think of it. Neil Caffey is the character's name. It's driving me nuts. But that show, once I remember the name of it, I will tell you that one. The entire series is on Netflix, and they actually had an end to it. And she really liked it, and I ended up really liking it as well. It's cute. It's there's an overarching storyline, but it's mostly episodic. So it's like the whole thing where there's a little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end, and the rest of the show is about whatever crime they're solving that day. And at the end of the season, they sort of tie everything up, and it's perfect. And I liked it. It was good enough. And then I really like Hustle, which was the UK. It started. It was a UK show. I don't know where you can watch it, but Hustle was really good in it, and it's a con artist. I don't know why I have that theme going on today, but basically,
it's what got recommended because you watched one con artist show.
The team basically finds people that are not nice or evil or whatever, and cons them out of their money in order to. They don't really sometimes they give back, but I think they use most of the money for themselves, which is fine. And then there's the American version, which is called Leverage, which is not quite as good. And quickly, you have to have some, at the first season or 2 is okay. But by the 3rd season, you're like, oh, come on, you can't hack that fast. You have to really suspend
it
some
became
disbelief.
Swordfish.
It did, but at the end, it was another one of those shows where they actually were able to end it, and it didn't just end randomly. So there was a nice, it have a nice end, and I like that.
If we left off your favorite show, come over to our Facebook page or to avrant.com and leave a comment, because we probably left off someone's favorite show. It's impossible to list them all, but John, that is a huge selection. You could watch TV every day, several hours every day, and not run out for a good long time with all of those. So.
If you want to be offended, you could watch Brickleberry Park or The League. This is a good one too for being offended about things. If you're into that sort of stuff, so comedy sort of thing. Archer, I'm a big fan of Archer.
Oh yeah, Archer's great.
So, but those are the kind of things that you watch and don't tell people you watch. But then I just did. But Archer is great.
Yeah,
that is great. F is for Family. I've never watched that show, but
Oh, I haven't watched
if
it
you
yet.
did and laughed at it, I would probably think you were an okay guy. All right, Bob over on Twitter wants a recommendation for a good 2-channel amp that would connect it to Chromecast audio and nothing else.
All right.
Chromecast audio can be connected to anything via 3.5.
Yeah,
Or
3.5 millimeter to
to
stereo
something else.
RCA jacks.
So basically, any amplifier can do this. But is he looking for like an integrated amp? Is that what he's looking for?
Well, it would be darn helpful to have an amplifier that has a volume knob on it, because the Chromecast audio.
That's not what he asked for.
doesn't.
He wants a good 2-channel amp that will be connected to the Chromecast audio and nothing else.
But
As
if
far
it's
as I can
connected to
tell,
nothing else-
it's going to be connected not to speakers either, just to the amplifier. In which case, who cares if it's got a volume control?
Well, either way, I'm suggesting the Lee Pi LP 7498. You can find it at Parts Express. It's under $100. It's a Class D amplifier, but it's good. It's great. It's perfect for an application like this. It does have a volume knob, and you can send it Bluetooth directly if you want to. So.
Right. What's the Emotiva one? This new they have a new stealth one, or the stealth thing?
Everything's over $400 now. They don't have that little
What?
mini. They don't have that little mini X one anymore. That one's gone.
Oh, that one was good.
So everything's over $400
That's
over
what
there.
I was going to recommend. How do you take away the thing I was going to
It's
recommend?
gone. I don't know. They'll probably replace it with something in the not too distant future. But
What is it? E-Connect. Oh, that's connection.
for right now, I'm saying that Lee Pi. It's under $100. It's perfect for this. Yeah.
Dang,
Tom's
you're
looking
right,
stuff up.
dude. I
I
can't
know,
believe this.
it's good. I wouldn't lie.
That sucks. What's this thing? I'm going to click on this now. $500.
Fantastic pod.
The Stealth DC one is $500.
That's the way it goes. Told you. Everything's over $400 over there now.
There's probably something at that
Immersa line or something that's coming.
no, there's probably
one day.
something at that one manufacturer who I will not name. They probably have something over there that you could use. You know which one I'm talking about.
Oh, the I said it last week on the podcast because you weren't here. SCHIIT.
Yeah, there's probably something there you should look
That's
at.
true. I didn't think about them.
Sean's basement home theater build is coming along nicely. He's used our previous advice and Scott S's advice to move the doorway, run multiple separated electrical circuits, construct a front baffle wall, position his subwoofers, position his seating on 4-inch and 10-inch risers, and downgrade from a full bar to a snack table at the back of the theater.
So here's some pictures coming in. It's just framing right now. So he's got some folding chairs showing where the chairs will go in the future.
Yeah, I like the idea of the snack table. It makes me think that back there there's just going to be like a folding table and be like, whatever, dude, there's some saltines back there. Shut up, I'm watching the movie. All right. Okay, so back to the his current plans include wiring for 7.4.6. I don't think there's anything that does that. Is there?
There's nothing that can actually process that. Yeah. But he was thinking he's not 100% on what he will want this thing to be. So why not wire for it ahead of time? Because I think extra speaker wire doesn't cost a ton. So
I think you should, when you put your surround when your Atmos speakers up there, you should actually put all three of them up there, and then that way you can go. I'm going to try the top fronts and the top middles. Nope. How about the top fronts, top rears? How about the top middle and the top rear? We'll call the top rear the rear height or something.
Yeah.
So I think you could make sure you put the top fronts and the top rears in that arc that right where it overlaps from top rear to rear height, and from top front to front height.
Yeah, which would be 45-degree angles, which basically means 5 feet in front of you, 5 feet behind you.
Yeah, so those are the places I would put them just in case. Anyways, he also wants can lights, 2 fans, fiber optic effects. Oh, all right, cool. And LED, no explosions, and LED strip lighting. As such, the ceiling is getting a bit crowded. There's ductwork to run too, but the theater system gets priority. You can put the LED strip lighting on the floor. How about that? That frees up something.
Yeah, or around the perimeter or something.
That's what I would do. So his main question is, where exactly should he mount his projector? He wants a 150-inch screen, and eyes to screen for the front row is 128 inches.
Which means he's sitting one screen width away, like a certain
you and the other dude.
Yeah, so he's got his second row planned out to be about 6.5 feet behind the front row. So he's definitely got some distance there. Now, I worked it out. I know previously he was asking for a projector that could do HDR.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's going to be
grand.
It's going to be one of the JVCs, I'm thinking. Yeah. Which would be a great choice for this anyway. And they have like enough light to contend with a 150-inch screen, because a 150-inch screen is a big screen for most home theater projectors. But the JVCs can handle it, and they can do HDR. So going over to projectorcentral.com, using their projection calculator to figure it out. Now remember, we're talking distances from the screen to the lens, right? So there's still the whole body of the projector to go behind the lens. But the closest you can put any of those JVCs to create a 150-inch screen is 15 feet 3 inches. And you wouldn't want to do that. You'd want to give it a little bit more than that, because that's not always like 100% perfect as far as those numbers goes. But basically about 15 and a half feet is more or less as close as you would want to put the lens of the projector.
Do we remember how long this room is?
So let's see. I think it was 23 feet.
All right. Well, that's good. At least it fits. At least it fits in the room.
Oh yeah. And like basically his second row is at about 17 feet from the screen.
It's about where you're going to put it then, right above your second row.
So basically right above that second row, if that's manageable, or a little bit in front of that second row. Now, just because of light output concerns, and because the farther away you put the projector, the more zoom you have to use, and that starts to decrease your light output a little bit. So you don't want to go farther than having the lens about 17 feet away from the screen. So it's going to be a matter of you figuring out how much you want to have the body of the projector right over top of that second row, or maybe a little bit in front or a hair behind, but somewhere in that range of about 15 and a half to 17 feet for the lens of the projector. And then remember, there's the whole body of the projector behind it, but that's
honestly,
where I would recommend putting it.
I'm betting that once we get into HDR projectors proper, when we start seeing them a lot more often, I bet we start changing our recommendations from a screen gain to like a 1.0 screens. I'm thinking that's the direction we'll probably end up going. I don't
know. If you want that higher light output, having a little gain wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I bet the dark levels end up becoming an issue, though. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. What do we got now? Is that the end of that, dude?
I believe so.
Dude. Matthew, how much time we have left? Oh, lots of time. Matthew, over from Facebook, says that he's a new listener who discovered us because of Scott's mention of us in his SVS featured theater write-up. He describes himself as a high-end AV enthusiast trapped in a budget AV enthusiast body.
Aren't we all?
I was going to say, dude, welcome aboard.
Yeah.
The ship's been sailing for quite some time, but we're glad you're here. Yes. Anyways, so he's hoping we can answer some questions for him. We might have talked about some of these topics previously. That's fine.
I put that in there because I want to just bring it, because we like to mention it from time to time. This is a place where ask your questions. You know what? You can come back and ask the same question 2 weeks in a row, the same person. We don't mind. We're not the forums where we say use the search, or this has been answered before, or read through 350 pages of a thread because it was mentioned in there somewhere. We don't do that. You ask us a question, we answer it. We realize that sometimes people need to have it repeated or explained a different way, sometimes for it to click in their mind. We've had lots of people tell us it was like the third or fourth time they heard us say something that it clicked and it made sense. And that's what we want. That's what we're all about. So ask away. We don't mind at all.
That's right. I agree 100%. Now, he currently has older Boston Acoustic CR9, CR2, and CR7 speakers with an SVS SB12 NSD subwoofer, all powered by an Onkyo TX NR717 receiver.
All right.
He has an opportunity to get a set of Polk Audio M70s, CS2s, and M40 speakers, all for less than $500. Would these be an upgrade to what he already has?
That isn't a good deal, but my opinion is no.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I looked at the Boston Acoustic speakers, and they are freaking weird. You know what I mean? I just looked at the CR9s, which I figured were his main speakers, because that's really all I really care about. And they're not towers; they're bookshelves, right?
Oh, okay.
The CR9s are bookshelves,
CR9s?
but they're
CR9s were towers.
Well, the images I saw were bookshelves. Anyways, they're massive. They're massive, but and it's weird because they have a woofer at the bottom and then a tweeter and then like 4 inches of cabinet above it. It's
okay.
Very bizarre.
Oh yeah.
Very bizarre speaker. But it seems like, and Boston Acoustics is a company I have a lot of respect for.
Me too.
They will put out some crap from time to time, but it's consumer level crap, and you know it is. This is not that. This is, in my opinion, when I saw these, I was like, "Ooh, these look like speakers somebody thought about," because no one would make this speaker on accident. It is a bizarre looking speaker. That said, I bet it sounds really good. And these Polk audios, while I have no problem with Polk speakers in general, I don't think are going to sound as good as what you currently have.
I'm really not a huge fan of that of their lower tier series, like the M series that's being in question here. Look, if you're the person who's buying these speakers for the first time, they are not bad speakers. I'm not saying that, but I don't think they're like great speakers, and I really don't think they're an upgrade to the ones you already have. No. So I wouldn't take advantage of this deal just because it's a good deal. It is a good deal. I'm not saying that. This is a good deal for that set of speakers, $500 for those 5 speakers. But I don't think you're getting an upgrade. So
if you were asking me, should I buy these? This is my first set of speakers.
As my first set of speakers, yeah.
I would say yes. But you already have what I consider to be decent speakers. Yeah. Yes, they're older.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're weird. But, you know, weird's cool. No one else has got them.
It is okay to let a deal go by sometimes when you're not really getting much of a benefit from said deal.
So he's also been considering the SVS Prime speaker package, which I just reviewed today.
Yes.
But the price would be nearly 3 times this Polk offer. Would they be worth it? I believe they would be much better than the Polk speakers.
I concur.
I don't necessarily think they're going to be 3 times better than the speakers you currently have. I don't know if that really... Yeah. If you think that your speakers are worth what this, you know, are not worth the price that these speakers are, the $500 or whatever they are, I don't know that you're going to think that $1,500 for the Prime speaker package is going to give you a 3 times upgrade over what you currently have.
I bet you they'll sound different.
I guarantee you they'll sound
different. No question about that.
Yes, and you may love them.
Yes.
And they have free shipping both ways.
Yes.
So let's try that.
You could try. You could try just.
I think it would be a very interesting. I think it would be a very interesting experiment for you to order, you know, their bookshelves, listen to them, and then tell us what you think. Because my guess is that you're going to go is either you're going to think it's not that big of an upgrade, or you're going to like your speakers better. That's my guess. I might be wrong.
Now, his next question is, do we have any other suggestions for speakers that would blow all of these options out of the water and be like super duper high value? And I'm going to say, I can't tell you what you're going to think is like, you know, blowing stuff out of the water, but I can tell you this: we got 3 companies now that we recommend all the time that are now paying shipping both ways, because Ascend is paying shipping both ways. You weren't here for last week's podcast when this came up. Ascend is now paying shipping both ways on just 3 of their bookshelf speaker models. The CBM 170s, the CMT 340s, and the Sierra 1s. Not on the Sierra 2s, unfortunately, and not on the HTM 200 SEs, unfortunately, the little guys that I like so much. But this would be a great time to order yourself some SVS speakers, some Ascend. I think go for the 340s up front, because you already got pretty big front speakers. And then Aperion as well, who also pays shipping both ways. Why not give all 3 a try? Because I'm betting you'll find something out of those 3 where you're like, ooh, this is worth it. I bet you will. And it's risk-free. That's the whole point, right? Free shipping.
I would concur. I would concur with that. Yeah, I would. You don't think the Sierra ones? The Sierra ones are like $700.
Well, it's just they're expensive. It starts getting pricey.
But if he likes the Sierra ones, then he could get 3 Sierra ones up front and then something else in the.
He could do that.
You know, that would match.
Yes.
Them.
But I mean, any of these are completely risk-free now. Free shipping both ways, full return if you send them back. So give them
I would also highly
I would
recommend...
say any of those 3 blow the Polks out of the water. I'm sorry to Polk, but I think
God.
Yeah.
everything that we've talked about so far would blow the Polks out of the water, I think. I think that's...
They definitely are all more than $500 for a set of 5, though. So have to
that is
keep
true.
That in mind.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about absolute value. You know, it all depends on your frame of reference.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speakers out there that are really great values, that have really good performance for their price point. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're an absolute value to you, because you're asking us about speakers that 5 speakers that are less than $500. Right. There's not a lot of 5 speaker sets
less like the Pioneer Andrew Jones. That's what I would point you to if we were buying brand new.
If you were buying brand new, that's what I would point you to as well. Yeah. That being said, you know, you're not coming from that. you're coming from something else. So you've already got what is probably a pretty decent pair of speakers.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you're gonna find anything that's sub $500 for 5 speakers that's going to get you better than what you currently have.
Yeah. That's tough.
I can definitely get you better speakers than what you currently have.
Yeah.
I just can't get it to you for whatever. I don't know what your actual price. Give us a price point, dude. You're killing me here. All right. Do we have any? I already said that one. His receiver has Odyssey 2 EQ. Is it even worth using 2 EQ?
Yeah, not really. It doesn't do anything to the subwoofers. So
does it do anything to your subs? It's
rather low resolution. Could potentially
poke in the.
I don't know. It could potentially do more harm than good. Just EQing the
theoretically, but it is literally it is the Odyssey where Onkyo said, "Listen, this is all the processing power that we're going to give you because this is all we can afford to put in the receivers." And Odyssey was like, "Well,
I mean,
I don't know. Here, take this hamstring version that we haven't touched in 5 years.
Set your distances and your levels correctly, so for that much, it's worthwhile."
There you go.
Use it for that, then kind of turn it off because you could. It doesn't take away the distance and level settings by turning it off.
So, anyways, there are options for adjusting a manual EQ in the receiver with fixed frequency positions. Better to use that manual EQ, 2 EQ, or nothing at all. Oh, I definitely wouldn't use the manual EQ. Not with fixed.
Nah.
Not with fixed EQ. How do they know what your problems are? And even then, how do you know what your problems are?
I kind of vote for run 2 EQ so that it does the auto setup. And then maybe just turn it off and leave it at that.
No, I don't know. I don't agree. I would run it and then flip it on and off and do some listings.
Yeah.
And then decide.
Yeah.
I mean, you got it. You might as well try it.
Sure.
We mentioned that we recommend setting Odyssey Dynamic EQ to on. He's tried it, but it seems excessively boost the bass and surround channels when he does so. Mm-hmm. Is there further adjustment he needs to make? So I guess Joseph over on Facebook already answered this one.
Yeah, there is the reference level offset that you can use, where if you're finding it's boosting it too much, you can decrease the amount it's boosting it by 5, 10, or 15 decibels.
Oh, yeah.
So you do have the option to do that. And I think he was saying it's more for music than it is for movies, which is not unexpected. Or I think he was mentioning TV as well. And not all TV and music is actually properly mastered to movie reference volume, which is why they give you those reference level offsets in there. So you can use that. That will certainly tame things down. Very often the minus 10 dB for a lot of music actually makes it sound correct. So that can get it done.
Anyways, he has set Odyssey to movie. He likes to use the THX cinema listening mode. Using any THX listening mode, our re-EQ defaults to on every time, as we all very well know. Yeah. And it seems to dull the treble. Should he leave it on? Change the Odyssey mode? Manually click off re-EQ every time? So re-EQ. This is a deal. In movie theaters, they're freaking huge, right? Yeah. And you're sitting very far away from the speakers. And
there's a lot of bodies in there if it's a full theater.
There's a lot of bodies in there. So as the sound is coming to you, there's lots of ways for that treble, the very high end, to get absorbed, reflected, and or just not get to you at all. Yeah. So in movies, the movie soundtrack, they tend to boost the treble a little bit, goose it up about 3 dB, the top end, and the re-EQ rolls that off by 3 dB, which makes perfect sense. If you have an original movie soundtrack that you are having to deal with,
which they haven't remastered for the home, which they usually do.
They have totally done that, and they have already done it. So what happens is, the movie the movie soundtrack has been remastered for the disc. You take the disc home, you plug it into your player sends it out. It's already had that top end boost rolled back off, and now it's getting rolled off again by re-EQ. So the Odyssey mode has nothing to do with this.
Well, in the Odyssey movie mode does actually apply a slight high frequency roll off too. So it's getting done triple time now.
But I think that the roll off that Odyssey is going to do is not going to be something that you're going to find to be unpleasant or not needed.
Yeah, it's not as egregious as the THX re-EQ one.
The re-EQ, on the other hand, is, and by double dipping on this thing, you're really
Yeah.
you're really taking a hit at the top end. So I'm not surprised that you're finding it to be dull, the top end to be dulled. So the real solution here is never to use THX cinema listening mode.
Yeah, you could do that. You can just use the regular, whatever it is, decoding mode straight up.
Dolby, DTS, whatever it is.
True HD, HD Master Audio.
Because if you don't, then every time you switch to THX cinema listening mode, our re-EQ will turn on and you will have to manually turn it off. There is no global off that I'm aware of.
No, they don't let it happen. Every time you power down and power on, it's back on. I did used to like the THX listening modes. I would manually turn re-EQ off every time. That's what I did. So, yep.
Lastly, he just wanted to comment that he has an LG LED backlit LCD TV from 2009, and it also has separate vertical and horizontal sharpness controls, which he always thought was strange and a bit pointless.
So, Infinite Gary, you're not alone, and LG has just apparently been doing this for a long time.
And we just didn't know because we have never had any LG TVs. One thing I want to say about those projectors we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
They all had like those laser lamp lights were like 20,000 hours or something.
Yeah.
Which I was like, yay, that sounds like awesome rather than the 2,000 or 4,000 we get these days.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, I thought, I don't know, lasers would be worse. Anyways, Ted took our advice from last week and he tried playing a bass sweep. It wasn't my advice, Ted, so whatever. And tried playing a bass sweep through his current lone subwoofer. He watched an SPL meter while the sweep played and it was bouncing everywhere. So we've convinced him to go with dual subwoofers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's what it takes, dude. I did. He made a video of it and posted it to YouTube, and I watched it because it was very short. And you could actually see when in the bass it was kind of going everywhere, and then once you got into the treble, it was still fluctuating, but it was all fluctuating within, was it 10 dB or 5 dB?
Yeah, like 5 dB. Yeah.
It was all fluctuating right there where it kind of should have, but then the bass was all over the place. So
yeah,
it is. So Ted's got Odyssey. I don't know which one he's got, but he's got one. He used it to measure. He used it to measure in 5 of his seating positions. Okay. Obviously, it didn't fix the bass issues in his room using his current single sub. When he has his dual subwoofer set up, how should he approach EQ and room correction? Should he still use Odyssey? Yes. Should he take a crack at manual EQ? No. What about all the frequencies above 80 hertz? Don't worry about it. They didn't look super smooth on an SPL meter either. Dude, they look pretty freaking smooth. they didn't look too bad to me. I was impressed. So what should they do? Well, first of all, when you say you measured in 5 of your seating position, it makes me think that you took your Odyssey mic and you put it in position 1, which is where you sit, and then you put it in position 2, which is where your wife sits, and you put it in position 3, which is next to you on the other side of your wife, in position 4 on the other side of your wife, and it's position 5 on the other side of the cushion that was next to you, or maybe in the wall next to the wall where your kids sit. Don't do that. You do not want to act. I mean, I know it says seating position 1, seating position 2. That's totally not what they mean.
Yeah, the diagrams that they have, at least in Denon and Marantz receivers these days, is more helpful because they show a 3-seater couch, and they're like, look, position 1 is the middle seat of the couch, assuming your couch is centered,
right,
looking at the middle of your TV, lined up with your center speaker. Position 1 is that middle seat on the couch. Position 2 is the seat on the right. Position 3 is the seat on the left. And then positions 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all like maybe a little ahead of that or in between them or a little above them or whatever, but they're all staying within the bubble of that 3-seater couch. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to go more than about 2 feet in any direction from that first position. Keep it all within about 2 feet of that first central primary position. Don't go measure over by your side wall because you happen to have a seat over there, like physically have a seat over there. Don't put the microphone over there. Keep it all within about a 2-foot bubble.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't know what receiver he has, do we?
We did. I forget at the moment.
Does it have dual subwoofer independent outputs or not?
Not independent, no.
But Odyssey can't calibrate them separately. Is that what I'm made to understand by this question?
No, because it would be sub EQHT'd before you can get independent dual
right.
sub outputs.
That's what I was wondering.
He doesn't have that. He does not have that.
So
When he upgrades to an Atmos receiver, he will. But
the way to approach, are we talking about how they EQ with dual subs now, or are we
no, I
just
mean, the point is get them positioned properly.
yeah,
That'll automatically get you more uniform bass, and then Odyssey can do its thing, and it'll do a half decent job.
that's right.
Yeah.
You just use a splitter.
Yeah.
For your
The problem
subs.
is right now you have non-uniformity. Even just watching the SPL meter in one position showed you have non-linearity, but one of the reasons is if you measured in 5 different positions and every position got a different frequency response, Odyssey goes, well, I can't really correct this because if I correct it for one of the seats, it'll make one of the other seats worse than it already is. So you
That's
have
right.
to get the uniformity first, and then Odyssey can go to work on making it linear.
That's right. Michael, thanks you guys, I guess, for your suggestions on this new HTPC. He has some more info so that we can help him further narrow down what he's going to buy.
Sure.
HTPC buying advice. We have done this in a while. Is this really long? No. Good.
Nope.
Okay, because we're going to stop after this. He's fine with building his own PC if that's the best way to go. Now that we have the NVIDIA thing with Plex, maybe not. His wife does some PC gaming. Well, that kills that.
Yes.
So that's why they want a nice video card. Michael cares mostly about the audio. So does he also need a good sound card? Does he need to worry about good audio decoding in the PC? Or can all of the audio be output from the video card's HDMI output to his Denon 1912 receiver? Any potential problems using HDMI output for audio? I want to say no. I want to say that HDMI is the way to go, but this is PC, so I'm going to defer to Rob because it very well could be that there's some sort of weird caveat to this whole thing that I won't have any idea
I mean,
about.
we were questioning because he was when he first said he's like, oh, I want to get a nice video card and plenty of RAM, and we were like, do you really need it? Because you don't need it for video. Like if all you're doing is playing back video, you don't need it for that. But now that we know, oh, his wife does actually play some PC games, then of course you want to have a decent video card. Get an NVIDIA GTX video card, please. That is like the only way to go because they're like the only ones who properly support 24 frames per second. I don't know why ATI can't do that properly. Just get an ATX or get a GTX line video card from NVIDIA, and the audio output will be fine, especially if you are, and I'm pretty sure Michael is a Plex user. So that can send out the full bore Dolby True HD or DTS HD master audio bit stream. If you have an HDMI port anywhere on that PC, it can do that. So yeah, that's all you need. You don't need to decode inside of the HTPC because that would just get you PCM audio anyway. And if you ever go to Atmos or DTSX, you don't want PCM audio coming out of the home theater PC. You want the bitstream audio coming out of there. That's the only way to get Atmos or DTSX. So yeah, you don't need a separate sound card. You don't have to have the decoding inside the PC. You can send the bitstream audio from your videos out of that HDMI output and get an NVIDIA card.
And second and lastly, he wants to back up his Blu-ray movie collection. Does he need a Blu-ray burner drive or just a Blu-ray reader?
Just a reader.
Well, it depends on where you're backing them up. Do you want to make copies of them? Is that what you're saying by backup?
Onto other physical discs, like a writable Blu-ray disc.
Then you need a burner. But otherwise, if you're just going to stick them on a server someplace or a hard drive someplace,
yeah, he's got a NAS, so I'm pretty sure he's putting them on his NAS. I would suggest these days you're just going to use Make MKV, and it's actually a good thing because he was talking about, oh, maybe he'll get a Mac. Well, you know what? Make MKV works on Macs too, so that wouldn't have been a problem. But yeah, certainly there's the Windows version. Make MKV. With Make MKV, you have the option. You can either rip the entire disk as a folder structure, and it's weird doing it in Make MKV. The way you do it is you do not press the one gigantic button that greets you when you open MKV that says open this disk. You do not press that.
Why would you press the big button? That's just
that looks like the only thing you can press. If you want to rip the whole disk kit and caboodle one-to-one in a folder structure, you don't do that. Instead, you go up to the file menu and there is an option up there that says like copy entire disk, and that's what you do. You don't press the one big button. If you do press the one big button, then you will have the option to make MKVs, as surprisingly the software name lets you do. So you have the choice either. If you're using Plex, then you do want to make MKVs. Just realize that you'll only be getting the main feature of the movie. You won't have like the disc menu or the special features when you do that. It'll just be the main movie, but that's okay.
All right. We will answer Will's because it's also short.
Yeah, I was really hoping we get like, the last two because Roberts and who's the last person? Was it Justin Bieber? Justin, not
Not
Bieber.
Bieber.
Both of those are really long, so we won't do those. But I think we can hit these last two really quick.
Will got his BenQ HD 2050 and Silver Ticket 110-inch screen setup. Both were AV Rant podcast recommendations.
Woo.
I know the Silver Ticket is nice. I like mine quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
So there we go. He has two subwoofers. He plans on putting one on the front wall and one on the back wall. Yay! He knows we recommend having them diagonally opposite from one another. That is correct. But on the back wall, he needs to put the subwoofer on the left of center due to a stairway on the right side. That's fine.
Yep.
And on the front wall, he'd really prefer to have the subwoofer also be on the left of center rather than to the right due to an electrical outlet that he'd really love to be able to cover up the subwoofer.
And I've thrown an image up there so you can see the electrical outlet to the left of center on the front wall. He's like, I could put a sub in front of that and not have to look at that anymore. That's his thought.
So how bad is it to really have both subwoofers to the left of center? Well, it's not good. I'll put it that way.
It's less than ideal. Yeah.
I mean, really? You can't. It's just, you can't.
I mean, physically, there's no reason he can't put the subwoofer on the front wall to the right of center. There's certainly physically space to do so.
There's a space right there. I'm looking at a big empty space.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll be doing what we talked about. You'd have to play with the phase, which is a heck of a lot of trial and error. Yeah. Yeah.
You got wires hanging down from it looks like from behind the screen anyway. So why don't you just take a piece of fabric and a black fabric and hang it from the bottom where your screen is right there. Just hang it straight down.
You could put some base trap panels along the bottom.
There you go.
The screen. Kill two birds with one
stone. You know what I have in
stone.
the front of my screen that covers up all my wires and crap? I bought those not bought them, but I had extra tri-traps lying around. And I just put them on the floor right there. Look like wedges. Put them right in front of those outlets. And I put my center channel right in front of it.
Yeah.
And then it hides all the wires. There's just a wire popping out from underneath one of them. It goes right up into my center channel, and that's it. Looks very nice. I'm not going to say the rest of my theater looks nice because I have the wire management of a rat. But yeah, come on, dude. Seriously, we can come up with a solution to this. Yes, you don't want to deal with the hassle. You don't want to go through knowing that the whole idea of doing this is to get really even bass in the easiest possible way, and then have to sit there and adjust phase for a week or half a week or all of your weekend one weekend. So anyways, he's also heard us recommend inexpensive amplifiers from Date and Monoprice, especially for Zone 2 or just to power one pair of Atmos speakers, but we never seem to recommend their inexpensive speakers. They're just going to be Atmos positions or surround backs. We think Monoprice, Date, and Silver Ticket budget speakers. Silver Ticket makes speakers?
They're all in-wall and in-ceiling, but I guess for Atmos that would make sense, right?
Yeah.
In-ceiling.
Budget speakers, would these be okay? In that case, he'd be matching them, and in his case at least, he'd be matching them to some older Energy speakers.
Well, Monoprice got sued for cloning Energy speakers.
Those would probably work for you.
They slightly modified them, and they're still very similar. Those are the quote-unquote Premier Select series. That they are basically Energy speakers. So I'd be honest, quite all right with using those as surround back.
I said it earlier in this podcast. You could put any damn thing in your ceiling, as far as I'm concerned, for Atmos speakers. Just anything will be fine. That being said, it's always nice when people come to us and say, I was thinking about buying these speakers. Should I buy these, or do you have a recommendation for something else? Rather than coming up and saying, I want to buy speakers, what should I get? Because when you ask me what you should get, I'm going to go back to my pool of knowledge of speakers that I'm familiar with. What speakers am I familiar with? Because those are the ones that I'm going to pull from to recommend.
Sure.
That being said, if you came to me and said, does this Dayton speaker look like it would be fine for an overhead speaker? I would have probably said fine. If the Silver Ticket one, yeah, that's fine.
For me, the reason they don't come up more frequently is because those Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers are out there, and they're inexpensive enough that I'm like, that's something most people can afford. And I think they're like an order of magnitude better than these super inexpensive ones, because there's only one way you can make a speaker that cheap, and that's to use some pretty darn cheap parts. It's like
Right.
really no way around that. They're still making a profit despite like the Monoprice has like a 5.1 set that's like under $100 total. That is some cheap parts because they're still making a profit on that. So there's not really any way around it. But if you get that Premier Select, which is basically energy clones, I'd be totally fine with pairing those with some energy speakers.
For the problem that I have when you talk about these other budget speakers, when we're talking about actual speakers you're going to use for your home theater, I'm like, you could just spend a little bit more money usually.
Right.
I mean, when you're coming to me, it's like, oh, there's these speakers from Monoprice, they're $20 a pop. Should I get them? I'm like, no, but yes, I suppose, whatever. They're going to be crap. I mean, come on, they're going to be crap. We know this. Right, just like, and every once in a while something will happen, and it happens all the time in the AV world. Well, somebody will say, "Oh, I just got these speakers from Best Buy or from Monoprice or for something, and they were only $60 a pair, and they sound amazing, or the best thing ever." And for 6 months, it's what everybody recommends. And then somebody will post something in the forums. They'll say something like, "I got them. I really didn't see what the big deal was."
Somebody will actually measure them, or whatever. And even if the measurements are like really not properly done measurements, apparently that's gospel on a lot of the forums.
Yeah, it becomes assault. It's really terrible. So I'm going to recommend things I know. I'm going to recommend things I know that are good. And if you come at me with something for Atmos, I'm going to be like, I don't care. But if you come at me for something for your main speakers, I'm definitely going to have an opinion. And that opinion is probably not going to be spend $20 on the pair of speakers.
Yeah.
Just like the problem.
Another example is like those Focal birds or Focal little birds. I'm like, they're darn good, and they're like $100 each, which for a lot of people is affordable, especially when they just want something small that they can mount on their wall or on their ceiling and pivot it and point it where they want it. I'm like, that's a darn good solution. So that's the reason they don't come up more. It's not that I hate them. I'm just like, I think there's some pretty inexpensive stuff that does a really good job.
So Fred and his wife are purchasing a 5-year-old house, and he will have dedicated 18 by 20 foot enclosed media room on the second floor. That's exciting.
Guy. That's very nice. That's a nice size too. You can do a lot in that.
Yeah. It's almost a square.
It's better than that. 2 feet. That's a decent distance.
Anyways, they'd like to replace the carpet in that room. He's wondering if we have any suggestions for the best carpet choice in terms of improving audio. Carpet itself, I don't think makes a huge amount of difference, but what does make a difference is what's underneath the carpet. So when I got carpet in my home theater, I bought carpet that matched the rest of the carpet in the house, whatever that was. But when they asked me what I wanted underneath there, I went with that whatever was heaviest.
Yeah.
So whatever the pad is, get the thickest,
big old thick, heavy carpet pad.
That's what you want, because that's what's going to absorb the sound.
Yeah, in general, like thicker pile is better than like super thin pile.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a huge difference. I think I mean that mass loaded stuff at the underneath that's just really super thick and spongy is going to do a lot more than whatever, because carpet gets matted down and crushed and destroyed, spilled upon. Lastly, would it be beneficial to lay mass loaded vinyl under the carpet? Would that help prevent sound from being transmitted down to the first floor? What is mass loaded vinyl? Is he talking about like
that's the stuff that's normally put behind walls to just add mass to the wall to make it more soundproof?
I guess it couldn't hurt. I don't know.
Could, but over at soundproofingcompany.com, which is a place I love to point people to for anything soundproofing wise, they have a thing specifically for this. It is rubber. It is recycled rubber. They call it the Serenity Matte. And it's much denser and heavier than your carpet pad. And what they suggest you do is you put down the Serenity Mat, you still put a carpet pad down, and then the carpet over that. So it is, raising the height of your floor a little bit there. It's adding more, but it's adding a ton of mass. And then because it's rubber, it's still a little bit squishy. So like footfall noises are completely deadened out. It's pretty darn effective at deadening sound being transmitted through the floor. Now, it's not going to do anything for flanking noise, like stuff going through your vents, or stuff getting into your electrical outlets and down the walls that way. But as far as sound going directly through the floor, then it's pretty darn good, and it's purpose built exactly to go on the floor. Mass loaded vinyl isn't so much meant to go on the floor. And mass loaded vinyl does not like moisture. It really
do not put it on your floor, dude. Let's be honest. It's gonna happen. I've got a
So,
cup of water down here right now,
yeah.
and half the times as I'm cleaning up for the podcast, I kick it over.
Yeah.
Half of the times.
So to me, the Serenity mat, that's the way to go. It's doing what you want it to do. If you're worried about sound transmission, that's the solution. So soundproofingcompany.com.
There you go. All right, Robert and Justin Not Bieber, you both have questions. Justin Not Bieber's question is like forever. Is
I
that
know.
serious? Is
It
that
goes
seriously?
on and on and on and on.
Anyways, guys, get ready for that one. If you have any questions specifically about the SVS Prime speakers, I'll be happy to answer them.
Sure.
I don't know that I can answer all of them, but nice little speaker. I'm very impressed with it. So $500 a pair is not too bad.
Yeah, but you still think your Hyperion and Various Grants are better. So.
I do, but they're $200 more, $250 more.
That's right.
So yeah, they should be. They should be better.
Fair enough.
All right. This was our podcast. All right. Now, to get your question answered in the podcast, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can CC Rob at avrant.com and Tom at avrant.com. Go to www.avrant.com where you can leave us a comment or a donation at our PayPal donation under the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, as did our listeners of the week, Joseph, Terry, and Rick.
Yeah, Joseph, Terry, Rick, thank you guys so much.
All right, Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. You can communicate with us there and our listeners. Go to Twitter at First Reflect for Rob, at AVRant_Tom for me, and at Ost10Pon Austin, our producer. He is has his own podcast, We Watch Movies. It's a podcast about those bricks. You know what I'm talking about? The power bricks that computers have. Apparently that there is a lot of discussion within the community of which one is the best, and there's a lot of mixing and matching of power bricks to see which power is the cleanest.
They must be talking
testing.
all about that Xbox One S this week. No more power brick.
They are very upset about that, to be honest with you. They are not happy at all. They think that by putting the power supply inside there, it degrades the picture quality and how well the unit will actually work, the heat that will be given off. They really think leaving the power supply out is a huge benefit.
I just like that 3.5 years later, Microsoft figured out how to build a PS4, because it's basically the same size and has the power supply inside, just like the PS4 did since launch day. So
I can't stand that stupid
clap,
brick
clap.
thing, dude. It's ridiculously heavy too.
It's huge.
It is ridiculous. All right, for AV Rant, I'm Tom Antry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.